Chapter 385. Oh, are you willing to head to Zhaoqing Manor and fight with the Ming army? Finally, someone had jumped out. Huang Yuliang felt much more comforted, and his gaze toward Zhu Fangyong was filled with more hope. No. Zhu Fangyong shook his head. Seeing that Zhu Fangyong had not stepped out to help him, anger flashed across Huang Yuliang's face. Before Huang Yuliang could say anything, Zhu Fangyong had already said, "Young master, forgive me for speaking bluntly, but since Zhaoqing Manor has been taken, it will be extremely difficult to take it back. Since we are wasting soldiers on this, why not do something else?" Something else? What do you mean? Confusion appeared in Huang Yuliang's eyes. I am thinking that the morale of the South Ming army is at its peak. After winning 2 battles in a row, the morale of the army is at its peak. Facing this army, it is not easy for us to fight them head-on. We should think of other methods. The art of war says that the first time will weaken and the third time will be exhausted. As long as we can use the city to stop them, as time goes on, the morale of the army will be disrupted. At that time, it will be time for us to counterattack. Standing there, Zhu Fangyong spoke with a righteous expression and did not show any fear. Once he spoke, he immediately received the support of the other generals. Yes, General Zhu is right. The morale of the Ming army is at its peak, and it is not easy to fight them head-on. The people who could say such things were naturally afraid of the Ming army. Qing Yuan's martial prowess was much higher than theirs, but he still could not defeat the Ming army. If they went, wouldn't it be the same as going to their deaths? All of the generals said such things. Huang Yuliang knew in his heart that even if he gave a death order for anyone to lead the troops, they would most likely lose and would only damage their own strength. However, he was still unwilling to just defend like this, so he asked, "Then, according to General Zhu, we can only wait for them to attack in Wuxia City?" Of course not. Although we can't do anything to the Ming army at the front, the other armies can take action. For example, we can send General Cui Yan, who is outside the city, to lead troops into Mengzhu Ridge, which is between Pingyuefu and Shaozhoufu. Passing through there, we can avoid fighting with the Ming army's main force and also push the battle line out. Once we enter Yongzhoufu in the Huguang area, we will be free like birds flying in the sky. We can greatly expand our army there. At that time, whether we continue to attack cities and seize land to expand our influence or bring the newly arrived troops back to Guangdong, the initiative will be in our hands. There is also General Sun Jianglong in Gaozhoufu and Lijiaofu. We can order him to launch an attack on the Guanghai guards and thus attack Guangzhoufu to divide the Ming army's strength and destroy them one by one. Also, we can arrange for General Ru Honghai in Xuanzhoufu to advance toward Nanningfu in Guangxi and also toward Liuzhoufu. There is also another benefit. Once Wuxia City is in danger, we can retreat toward Guangxi to avoid the danger and make plans. After speaking so much, Zhu Fangyong turned to Huang Yuliang and said, "This way, we will be spreading out everywhere and forcing the Ming army to send reinforcements everywhere. At that time, our chance will come. We can gather a large number of troops to attack one place and reverse the current disadvantageous situation." Zhu Fangyong's words were clear and logical. In Huang Yuliang's ears, it was quite feasible. He was even fantasizing that once the plan came true, the power in his hands would more than double. At that time, he would be able to stand up against Yunnan's Minzhuang Wangzhu Huiying. Then, it would not be impossible for him to conquer the world. Good. General Zhu's plan is good. Immediately write letters to the heavenly kings. I want to spread out everywhere on the battlefield. I want the Ming army to be tired of dealing with them. I want the world to know my power. Huang Yuliang laughed in praise. It was as if he had already become the master of the world. Congratulations, young master. The other generals in the hall also flattered him, causing waves of laughter to erupt. Fast horses left the Wuzhou house and headed in all directions. Before long, Guangdong, Guangxi, and even Huguang would become chaotic. At that time, the Ming Empire would not have the energy to send a large army to deal with the Wuzhou house. Zhaoqing House. A new round of evaluation and selection was going on. Of the 5,000 soldiers that Qing Yuan had brought with him, 4,500 remained unscathed in this battle. They had all become captives. Among these people, there was no lack of strong and healthy people. In this aspect, one had to say that Qing Yuan cared about his subordinates. As for their food and drink, he did not take away much. Now, these people had all become good soldiers. First, there was registration. Then, there was an investigation. There was also the process of exposing each other. Among the 2,000 people who had become temporary soldiers, some were familiar with these brothers. With their help, the evaluation went even smoother. In the end, 1,000 of the 4,500 people were chosen to become temporary soldiers. The other 3,500 people were given to Guanning and Ma Wei as usual. Yang Qindong did not lack useless soldiers. These people would eat a lot every day. It was better to leave the headache to others. Choose and see if there are any who are willing to become soldiers. If there are, investigate their backgrounds. Guanning discussed with Ma Wei. With the 2,000 temporary soldiers that Yang Qindong had taken in as an example, the two of them could see the importance of captives. If there were two things that they could not ignore in the Battle of Zhaoqing, it would be the appearance of the 40 fires and the performance of the temporary soldiers. Mercenaries were very powerful in all aspects. Guanning and Ma Wei already had enough knowledge of this. However, the 2,000 temporary soldiers had only been in the military camp for a few days and had only gone through a few days of training. They could not understand how they could display such strong killing intent on the battlefield. Why was it that even though they had both joined the army, once they joined the mercenary group, they would change so drastically? They couldn't figure out the logic behind it, but they could at least imitate it. They just had to learn from it. As for the two generals starting to recruit soldiers from the captives, Yang Qindong only smiled when he heard the report from his subordinates. Pass down the order. Organize the new temporary auxiliary soldiers and teach them culture using the method of the old leading the new. At the same time, tell them that culture is also very important. Whether they can become a member of the mercenary army in the future, this assessment cannot be ignored. If there is any obvious improvement, consider adding 3 pieces of fatty meat to their meal. Yang Qindong was very observant. This might have something to do with the fact that he was the most outstanding member of the Cold Vanguard Special Forces in his previous life. When carrying out special missions, being more attentive and observant could save one's life during crucial moments. It was precisely because of his meticulous observation that he noticed that whenever it was time to eat, the temporary auxiliary soldiers, who rarely ate their fill, would stare at the fatty meat on the plate without blinking. Some of them would even drool without any form of restraint. Most of the time, the reward was the most important thing. In other words, the reward had to be something the other party liked and needed. For example, if you asked a rich merchant to do something for you, and you only said that you would reward him with a certain amount of silver, the effect might not be much. However, if you said that you could give him an official position after he did a good job, then it would be completely different. Perhaps the other party would do the job well even if he had to pay for it. This was what it meant to reward something. Since the temporary soldiers were so greedy for fatty meat, he would use this as a guide. When Tiger's Mane heard Yang Qindong say that he would reward the soldiers who performed well with 3 pieces of fatty meat, he was stunned. Then, he said, "Young master, Zhaoqing Prefecture was just raided by the Huang army. We did get some gold and silver when we entered the city, but meat is very rare. It would cost a lot to buy it. Why don't we just reward them with silver? You also know that meat is very rare. If that's the case, even if we gave them silver, where would they go to buy it? Okay, go tell Guanning and General Ma Wei to help us contact pork. It would be best if there was a live pig for sale. We don't lack silver. When the live pig arrives, we can directly bring it to the barracks to stimulate those people." Yang Qindong shook his head with a smile and then said to Tiger's Mane in an unquestionable tone. Note, the so-called taboo is to avoid the name and not the surname. For example, there was a Kaiyuan county that was changed to Kaiyuan to avoid Zhu Yuanzhang's name. It was to avoid the Yuan in the name Yuanzhang. Everyone, please don't argue about whether the name pig is appropriate or not. Thank you. Since the young master had already thought of everything, Tiger's Mane didn't dare to say anything more. He agreed and left. When he found Guaning and Ma Wei because of this matter, and at the same time brought in a total of 30,000 silver taels, the two generals were really confused. However, since this matter was requested by the imperial envoy and he was willing to spend a high price to buy live pigs, how could they refuse? They immediately expressed that they would use their connections to get as many live pigs as possible. The two generals did their best on this matter. Regardless of whether it was because they wanted to curry favor with Yang Qindong or because they could profit from this matter, large amounts of live pigs were quickly sent to Zhaoqing Prefecture by the rich people in the nearby countryside. They then passed through the city and were transported to the mercenary barracks outside the city. Wang Yong was a member of the Wang family in Zhaoqing Prefecture. The Wang family had once been a large family in the city. Since he was young, he had never lacked food and clothing. He had always carried the hope of the family's revival. However, he had no interest in studying. Instead, he liked to dance with his spear and stick. He had taken many people as his master and had learned a good set of martial arts. When Zhaoqing Prefecture was surrounded by the Huang bandit army, he had been traveling with some of his Jianghu friends. After he heard the news of Zhaoqing being surrounded, he flew back. However, he was still one step too late. By the time he had secretly snuck back into the city, hundreds of people in the Wang family had all been killed by the Huang bandit army. There were also some clan sisters who had been brutally humiliated by Qing Yuan and his trusted aides. Chapter 386. The furious Wang Yong once again used the name of the Wang clan. To outsiders, he would always use the name Wang Yong from the Wang clan. He gathered a group of brothers to assassinate small groups of Huang bandit soldiers in the city. Not to mention that his plan was meticulous and his skills were good, he actually managed to kill many Huang bandit soldiers. For a time, Qing Yuan, who was in the city, was furious. If not for the fact that Yang Qindong and the others arrived outside the city in time and posed a threat to the Zhaoqing manor, Qing Yuan would have started a large manhunt in the city to find Wang Yong and the others. In the end, Qing Yuan was captured and the Zhaoqing manor returned to the arms of the southern Ming government. However, there was not a trace of joy on Wang Yong's face. This was because he had already found out that Qing Yuan was not dead. After being injured, he was imprisoned in the southern Ming army and was waiting to be sent to the capital to be executed. Wang Yong was unwilling that he could not take revenge for his clan by himself. For this matter, he had gone to find the southern Ming soldiers and requested to meet their general. However, how could a person without any official status get what he wanted? Not willing to give up, he saw a large group of pigs heading towards the mercenary camp outside the city. He immediately thought of a plan and chased after the pig delivery team. "I know how to herd pigs. I can help you." The pig delivery team consisted of a squad of Leng Feng, a platoon of auxiliary soldiers, and 100 southern Ming soldiers. Because there were too many pigs, it was difficult for them to herd them. Now that someone was willing to help, they naturally would not refuse. Thus, Wang Yong generously joined the team. Not to mention that his skills were good and his eyes were sharp. Every time the pigs wanted to leave the team, he would be the first to discover them and herd them. This was a great help. After traveling for a few li, the mercenary camp was in front of them. Because of the appearance of these live pigs, the normally heavily guarded military camp relaxed a little. Wang Yong even followed the troops into the military camp. With so many pigs being sent into the camp, the auxiliary soldiers who were training all widened their eyes. When they learned from their instructor that these live pigs would be slaughtered very soon and that everyone would get a share, and that those who performed well would get 3 extra pieces of fatty meat with their meals, each and every one of them worked even harder to train. Even when teaching them how to read and write, they were much more serious. It had to be said that Yang Qindong's move was indeed effective. After Wang Yong followed the team and sent the pork into the temporary pig house, the platoon leader, Ling Feng, who was following the team, came forward to express his gratitude. He even took out some silver as a reward. This was also the military discipline of the Yang family army. They couldn't casually take a needle or a piece of thread from the common people. As long as there were people who helped them, they had to give a corresponding reward. Of course, Wang Yong wouldn't care about such a small amount of silver. He refused. "Sir, I want to see your general." Captain Ling Feng was stunned when he heard this. He immediately understood that the other party had come for something. He immediately smiled and said, "Brother, seeing that you have a strong body, could it be that you want to join us? If that's the case, you don't have to go see a general. There's a recruitment office not far away. You can go there and register your situation in detail." "No. I'm not here to join the army. I have something to talk to your general about." Wang Yong shook his head and said coldly. To him, the Wang family had been destroyed by the Huang bandits. He had no hope of surviving. Right now, he only wanted to kill Qing Yuan and take revenge. After that, he would be at the mercy of others. For someone who had already thrown his life to the back of his mind, how could he have any interest in joining the army? Seeing that the other party wasn't here to join the army, the platoon leader raised his guard. He lightly raised his arm and made a warning gesture to the other members of the Ling Feng. He then smiled and walked in front of Wang Yong and said, "Brother, if you have something to tell me, it's the same. If it's really important news, I will definitely report it to our officers. Even if there's merit, I won't take it from you." As the platoon leader spoke, the other members of the Ling Feng platoon started to approach Wang Yong. Among them was Peng Yu, who had been allowed to join the Ling Feng platoon as an auxiliary soldier by Yang Chendong. Peng Yu hadn't been in the Ling Feng platoon for long, but his enthusiasm for learning was very high. He quickly learned some of the hand signals used by members of the Ling Feng platoon and was very familiar with the platoon leader's hand signals. While they were talking, he had already reached Wang Yong's side. After all, he was a martial artist. When someone suddenly approached him, Wang Yong quickly sensed it. Out of instinct, he suddenly charged at the platoon leader and struck out with his elbow. Those who could enter the Ling Feng platoon and become a platoon leader were all elites in the army. Even if their martial arts were average, they weren't easy to injure. Seeing that Wang Yong's attack was incomparably powerful, the platoon leader quickly retreated and dodged the attack. After forcing the platoon leader back with just one attack, Wang Yong quickly turned around and kicked him. Obviously, the attack just now was just a feint. His real target was the people behind him. He wanted to kill his way out before he was surrounded. Wang Yong charged in the direction of Peng Yu. Peng Yu saw the kick coming at him with a whistling sound. At this moment, his comrades didn't quickly form an encirclement. Peng Yu gritted his teeth and raised his right arm to protect his head. After that, he chose to take the attack head-on. Bang! The kick landed with a powerful force on Peng Yu's body. He couldn't help but let out a muffled sound. But then, he suddenly exerted force and pushed the kick away. Then, he quickly threw a punch at Wang Yong's chest. Peng Yu's reaction was fast and his ability to take hits was strong. This greatly exceeded Wang Yong's expectations. He originally thought that the other party was just a small soldier from the Southern Ming Empire. With his methods, he wouldn't even care if there were 3 or 5 of such people. But now, not only did the other party take the attack from his kick, but he was also able to counterattack. In a moment of carelessness, his body was a little slow in dodging, and the punch landed on his ribs. Although he discovered it in time and wasn't seriously injured, he couldn't help but feel a faint pain below his ribs. After knowing that Peng Yu wasn't simple, and from the corner of his eyes, he noticed that the surrounding Ming Empire soldiers were beginning to increase. Wang Yong, who didn't dare to continue fighting, quickly retreated and rushed in another direction where there weren't many people. Wang Yong's vision was accurate, and the direction he chose to break out of the encirclement was correct. It made the platoon leaders feel like they couldn't catch up. If they let him escape from their hands like this, they didn't know how they would be laughed at by their comrades. They immediately chased after him ferociously. Ba Daojiang, who was originally a captive of the Yellow Bandits, was now a temporary auxiliary soldier. At this moment, he was sneakily approaching the pig house. Don't think that he wanted to do something bad. He just wanted to see if there was an opportunity to eat the pigs when they were slaughtering them. It would be good even if he could eat a piece of meat. Because he was thinking about the pork, he asked for leave from the platoon leader and approached the pig house with the excuse that he needed to go to the toilet. Unexpectedly, he didn't see a single pig, but he did see a few humans. When he saw the platoon leaders wearing camouflage uniforms rushing in his direction, he instinctively turned around and wanted to run. After becoming a temporary auxiliary soldier, he naturally knew the story of the platoon leaders. He knew that they were the elites of the elites, and that they had the ability to fight against 100 people by themselves with their firearms. Although he was good at martial arts, how could he fight against advanced firearms? Since he wasn't a match for them, he decided to dodge. He was probably wearing a normal military uniform. Based on his appearance and not his face, no one should know who he was. Now that he saw the platoon leaders rushing in his direction, he naturally turned around and ran. But just as he turned around, he heard a shout behind him. "My comrade, quickly turn around and stop this spy." "Spy? I'm not." When Ba Daojiang heard that he was mistaken for a spy, he quickly shook his head to deny it. In order to clear his name, he turned around and waved his hands. "I'm just greedy for pork and wanted to take advantage of it. I don't have any other intentions. Don't accuse me of anything." Before Wang Yong could finish his sentence, a punch came flying toward his face. Ba Daojiang was standing right in Wang Yong's way. In order to escape, Ba Daojiang had no choice but to take action to clear the obstacle. Who was Ba Daojiang? He was a man of 8 feet, a famous man in the martial arts world. He was a man who once chased his enemy across 8 rivers. How could he allow others to slander him so easily? He was naturally afraid of Ling Feng, but he couldn't let Ling Feng teach him a lesson without even giving him a chance to explain. This was also because he had only been a temporary auxiliary soldier for a short time, so he didn't pay much attention to military discipline. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the courage to fight back. It was precisely because the military discipline was still a little loose that when he saw someone about to attack him, he didn't hesitate to fight back. In the face of Wang Yong's punch, he didn't dodge and met it with his right fist, letting the 2 fists collide in midair. Clang! When the fists collided, blood flowed out from the cracks between their bones. It was obvious that both of them had used a lot of strength in their fists. When the fists collided, Wang Yong's footsteps were blocked and he was forced to take a step back. Ba Daojiang, who attacked later, was at a disadvantage. Before he could fully unleash his strength, his fists collided with Wang Yong's and he was forced to take a step back. After both of them took a step back, their eyes were filled with killing intent when they looked at each other. It was as if they were saying, "Brat, you dare to attack me? You're dead meat." Their gazes met for only a moment. Then, without allowing anyone to say anything, the 2 of them began to exchange blows and fight, turning into a ball of fists and feet. Chapter 387. By the time Peng Yu and Ling Feng arrived, the 2 of them were already covered in wounds and were panting heavily. Both of them wanted to finish off the other in a short period of time, so they used all their strength. In the end, they were evenly matched, and no one gained much advantage. At this moment, the 2 of them were surrounded by Ling Feng's men. Wang Yong, who knew that he couldn't escape, cupped his fists towards Ba Daojiang. "Your kung fu is not bad, and you're fine after taking a kick from me. It's admirable." Wang Yong pointed at Ba Daojiang and Peng Yu, looking like a hero who was teaching others kung fu. "Humph. I haven't fully displayed my abilities yet. Let's fight another 100 rounds, then we'll know who's stronger." Ba Daojiang was obviously unconvinced. In fact, he didn't suffer any losses. He looked a little battered, but they were all superficial wounds. Just like the wounds he inflicted on Wang Yong, most of them were superficial wounds. "Yes, you're not that strong. Just now, you were just careless. Let's fight again. I don't think you can beat me. Peng Yu also lost his temper. He walked out from Lang Feng's team and came to Wang Yong and Ba Dao Zhang's side. The three of them stood in a triangular position. The three of them were not united. They were wary of each other and looking for flaws in the other two. No one had the intention to make the first move. At this moment, several people came from afar. The leader was Yang Chendong, who was wearing a camouflage uniform without any military rank. Speaking of military ranks, Yang Chendong was a little depressed. He could wear the rank of marshal, but his regiment commander, Luo Pe, was only a lieutenant colonel. If he wore that rank, the gap between the two of them would be too big. Even so, it was better not to wear anything during normal times. On the contrary, it would give him a sense of mystery. Yang Chendong came here to check on the situation of the pigs. Coincidentally, he received a warning. Tiger's Mane, Beta Persei, and the captain of the first guard team, Chiu Vi, and the others rushed over together. With the arrival of Yang Chendong, Wang Yong's escape route was completely sealed. Seeing that more and more people were arriving, he instead calmed down. Since he couldn't escape, then he wouldn't escape. It was just a pity that he couldn't personally avenge the Wang clan. Come on, do you want to come at me together or one by one? Grandpa will keep you company. Since he couldn't escape, Wang Yong simply let go of his worries and assumed a posture of wanting to have a good fight. 6. Seeing that Yang Chendong had arrived, class monitor Lang Feng was nervous and wanted to say something. Yang Chendong waved his hand first, then looked at everything in front of him with a smile and said, "What? Aren't you afraid of death? Die? Who wasn't afraid? But as a real man, there are things that he should do and things that he shouldn't do. He can't back down from what he should do, and he can't shirk the responsibilities that he should bear. At most, he'll be a good man again after 18 years. Wang Yong didn't know Yang Chendong's identity, so naturally, he didn't have any scruples when he spoke. Peng Yu, who was standing beside him, knew everything. When he saw that Wang Yong dared to talk back to the sixth young master, he said angrily, "Kid, be more polite when you speak. Don't cause trouble and end up losing your life here." When Peng Yu said this, he more or less warned Wang Yong. From this point, it could be seen that he personally admired Wang Yong. However, he didn't know the details of Wang Yong, so he didn't dare to say anything. Lose my life? Haha. After hearing this, Wang Yong looked up to the sky and laughed heartily, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. After laughing a few times, he stopped and said, "What's wrong? It's already like this, will you spare my life? What's wrong? Even if we must kill you? Did you really do something shameful?" Yang Chendong asked curiously, as if he was interested. Something shameful? Wang Yong was provoked by this question, and his face immediately turned red. Who said I did something shameful? I came here to see your general and have something to say. How is it shameful? After hearing Wang Yong's explanation, Yang Chendong was also stunned. Then, his gaze fell on Lang Feng, who was wearing the rank of a first-class sergeant. What happened? 6th. Chief, it's like this. We were leading a team to herd pigs and passed by Zhaoqing City. This person followed us and said that he knew how to herd pigs and was willing to help us. Considering that we didn't have enough manpower, we agreed. At first, I thought that since he helped us, we should give him some money. However, he didn't want it and said that he wanted to see the general. When I asked him what happened, he wanted to run away. Then, I wanted to capture him and interrogate him. Then, we started fighting. After Lang Feng finished speaking, he lowered his head as if he had done something wrong. Yes, you didn't do anything wrong after that. However, it was wrong to allow an outsider into the military camp without permission. How about this, when you go back, find your platoon leader to write a reflection. Tonight, you will reflect on it at the company meeting. In addition, your pay will be penalized for a month. Do you have any objections? Yang Chendong said seriously. No objections, Chief. When Leng Feng heard such a punishment, he didn't dare to have any objections. He straightened his back and said, "Good." He nodded at Leng Feng, then his gaze fell on Wang Yong. "If all of this is true, why did you suddenly attack these soldiers? Do you know that this can easily cause misunderstandings? Even if we kill you here, it will be your fault." Yang Chendong's tone carried an unquestionable aura. For some reason, after hearing this, Wang Yong felt that he was in the wrong. Who knows what they will do after capturing me? Will they really kill me? Speaking of which, didn't the Ming army do many similar things in the past? Wang Yong complained and couldn't even be considered an explanation. However, when Yang Chendong heard this, he couldn't defend himself. He knew that the people he brought were the new soldiers of the Yang family. However, in the eyes of outsiders, weren't they the South Ming army? It was no wonder that they had such prejudices against him. If it was him, he wouldn't have allowed himself to be captured. Thinking of this, he really couldn't blame Wang Yong. However, no matter what, Wang Yong had barged into the military camp and attacked the Leng Feng soldiers. If he wasn't punished, he wouldn't be able to answer to the other Leng Feng soldiers. Yang Chendong's face darkened and he said angrily, "No matter what, you barged into the military camp. Since you've trespassed into the military camp, it's impossible not to punish you. How about this? I'll give you a chance. The three of you will fight each other. If you can survive until the end, I'll fulfill your request and bring you to see the general here. How about that?" The three people Yang Chendong was referring to were Wang Yong, Ba Daojiang, and Peng Yu. Wang Yong originally thought that the other party had the advantage in numbers, and he had made a mistake in the first place. This time, he would definitely die. He didn't expect the situation to turn around. Immediately, he asked Yang Chendong with joy, "Is what you said just now true?" "It's true. No one here is more trustworthy than me," Yang Chendong promised Wang Yong. Then, his gaze landed on Peng Yu and Ba Daojiang. "The two of you have to perform well. Whoever can survive until the end will be promoted. Peng Yu, you can be promoted to the vice squad leader of the Leng Feng soldiers." "What's your name?" Replying to the chief, "My name is Ba Daojiang. I'm a temporary auxiliary soldier." Ba Daojiang replied. He had seen Yang Chendong before and knew that the entire army had to listen to this person's orders. When the platoon leader who was in charge of his temporary auxiliary soldiers saw this person, he didn't even have the chance to get close to him. It seemed like this person's status wasn't low. When he spoke, there was a hint of respect in his tone. "Looking at your clothes, I can tell that you're a temporary auxiliary soldier. Just now, they said that you were passing by because you wanted to get some pig offal. Alright, as long as you can survive until the end, I'll allow you to eat to your heart's content tonight. You can even eat half a pig. At the same time, I'll promote you to a real auxiliary soldier. How about that?" When Yang Chendong heard Leng Feng mention the reason why Ba Daojiang was here, he wanted to laugh. It seemed like his decision to get some pork was the right one. When he heard that he could eat to his heart's content, Ba Daojiang's eyes shone with excitement. "Chief, I'm afraid that half a pig won't be enough for me." "It doesn't matter. If you can eat, I'll give you the whole pig." Yang Chendong smiled. He was surprised by Ba Daojiang's appetite. However, since he had already said it, there was no way he would go back on his words. "Alright, I'll definitely perform well." Seeing that Yang Chendong agreed so readily, Ba Daojiang turned to look at Wang Yong and Peng Yu with a serious expression. It was obvious that he was serious about this. The three of them had their own targets. Naturally, it was time for them to get serious. The three of them stood in a triangular formation. First, they cupped their fists and reported their names. Peng Yu, Ba Daojiang, Wang family's Wang Yong. According to the rules of Jianghu, after the three of them reported their names, they began to attack fiercely and crazily. Wang Yong was good at kicking, straight kicks, side kicks, and leaping kicks. He could only see the shadows of his kicks everywhere, which was really a bit like the Foshan shadowless kick. Ba Dao Jiang Yi Quan was good at straight punches, hook punches, swing punches, and punches to the flesh. Every punch carried the sound of the wind, and the momentum was oppressive. Peng Yu was flexible and good at elbow skills. His body was like a loach that constantly swam around the two people. Whenever the punches and kicks were about to hit him, his figure often flashed and changed his position. Occasionally, his elbow counterattack was also oppressive. Once they were hit, they often cried out in pain. Is this the so-called kung fu? Yang Chendong looked at the exciting scene of the three of them fighting with his hands behind his back. He could not help but ask Beta Persei, who was beside him. Young master, this is kung fu. I can see that the three of them have learned it seriously. They have a good foundation. Beta Persei stared at the scene without blinking. He did not want to miss a single scene. Chapter 388. Beta Persei's strength lay in his height and strong body, as well as his ability to withstand blows. Often, when someone gave him 3 punches, the power of his one punch would be greater. However, it was precisely because he was too tall that he was not suitable for practicing martial arts. He had only learned a few moves from the 2 captains, Qiu Vi and Dao Shao. However, because he was strong enough, he felt endless power when he used them. Looking at Beta Persei's learning face, Yang Chendong knew that he would not be able to get anything out of him. He pointed at the captain of the first guard team, Qiu Vi, and said, Captain Qiu, tell me, which one of the 3 is stronger? It was easy to tell if an expert was skilled or not. As someone who had also practiced martial arts and had a good foundation, Qiu Vi naturally had a lot of professional considerations when judging. Seeing that Yang Chendong had called him, he took a few steps forward and said, Young master, the 3 of them have their own strengths, but Peng Yu seems to be better at guerrilla warfare. He's not suitable for this kind of face-to-face combat. Oh. You mean to say that Peng Yu will be the first to be defeated? Yang Chendong asked with interest. Not necessarily. Qiu Vi shook his head. Peng Yu is too agile. It's not easy to hurt him. On the contrary, if you're careless and get hit by his elbow, you might have to pay a big price. What do you mean? Yang Chendong was a little confused. Young master, I don't mean anything. I just want to say that the 3 of them have their own strengths. If you want to determine the winner, I'm afraid it'll be very difficult. However, the 3 of them are undoubtedly talents. If possible, young master, please allow them to be transferred to the first guard team. This will play an absolute role in better protecting the young master, Qiu Vi said while quietly paying attention to Yang Chendong's reaction. Since entering the battlefield, Qiu Wu had requested to increase the number of guards in the squad. After all, there were only 10 of them. Once they encountered danger, no one could guarantee their safety. This matter was also approved by Yang Chendong. A gentleman would not stand under a collapsing wall. He still understood this principle. When he heard that Qiu Vi wanted to take the opportunity to ask for him, he was stunned for a moment before he burst into laughter. You're good, Qiu Vi. Are you waiting for this young master? Fine, since that's the case, I'll see what they think later. If they're willing, I can take them in. But as usual, I still have to investigate their identities. Of course, if they don't want to, we can't force them. Yang Chendong's words meant that he agreed. Just like the investigation of identity, this was originally a very important matter. Protecting Yang Chendong's safety was the most important issue in the entire Yang family army. Of course, they couldn't be careless, and they couldn't allow unreliable people to exist. As for whether they were willing to stay by Yang Chendong's side as guards, no one would be able to resist such a temptation. The 3 of them were still fighting, and had already lasted for an incense stick's worth of time. It could be seen that the 3 of them were sweating profusely, and their breathing was unstable. This kind of fight was the most exhausting. After all, the difference in strength was so great that it was possible to make a big mistake if one wasn't careful. This kind of physical strength and mental strength required a high degree of concentration, and it was also the most exhausting. The three of them were still fighting, but Peng Yu's mental strength was slightly better. From the start of the battle until now, the number of times he attacked was not many. He relied on his nimble movements to dodge, which allowed him to maintain enough physical strength. At least compared to the other two who were sweating profusely, his situation was much better. It was precisely because Peng Yu's condition was the best that when he was hit by Ba Dao River's punch, he hurriedly retreated 4 or 5 steps, then fell to the ground with a plop. This caused everyone, including Yang Qindong, to be puzzled. After being hit to the ground, Peng Yu's mental strength seemed to have completely dissipated at this moment. I lost. How is that possible? He was in good condition just now. Qiu Vi was the first to voice his doubts. What's going on? He clearly could have dodged that punch. Beta Persei also voiced his opinion. Tiger's Mane, who was standing at the side, didn't say anything. He only glanced at the 6th young master from the corner of his eyes and saw that Yang Qindong's expression remained the same, and even had a smile on his face. He was even more certain that something had happened, and immediately remained silent with a smile in his eyes. Peng Yu left the field first, and the next 2 people to fight was Ba Dao River and Wang Yong. However, Ba Dao River, who had sent Peng Yu flying with a punch, was obviously not in his best condition. As the user of that punch, Ba Dao River was the clearest about the power of that punch. That punch wasn't something that he had been preparing for a long time. It was just a casual punch, and it was just to prevent Peng Yu from getting close to him. Regardless of whether he could hit him, even if he could, it would at most cause a slight injury to his opponent. It was impossible to cause such serious consequences. If it was really possible, Peng Yu would have been kicked out of the ring long ago and wouldn't have lasted for so long. However, it still caused such a consequence. What exactly was going on? Ba Dao River was thinking, which slowed down his movements. After being kicked by Wang Yong a few times, his footsteps began to become a little messy. It was precisely because of this that he seemed to have figured out something in an instant. When Wang Yong's next kick arrived, he intentionally let his guard down and took the kick head-on. After being kicked, his whole body was sent flying, and he fell to the ground more than 3 meters away. Huff, huff, huff. Wang Yong, who was panting heavily, started to lose his balance. Kicking was the most exhausting move. The reason he was able to persevere until now was because of his strong desire for revenge. Otherwise, he would have been the first one to collapse from the exhaustion of his stamina. I won. After turning around to face Yang Qindong, Wang Yong, who had finished speaking, suddenly lost his balance and was about to fall to the ground. Fortunately, Qiu Vi, who was standing at the side, reacted quickly and rushed forward to support the falling figure. You all did well. How about this? Arrange for them to rest, take a bath, get some food, change their clothes, and come see me again. Yang Qindong nodded lightly, and after making the arrangements, he turned around and left. Peng Yu, Ba Dao Jiang, and Wang Yong were carried away by the Langfeng soldiers. First, they had a comfortable hot bath. Next, they had enough meat. After that, they were given new clothes to change into. Ba Dao Jiang was very satisfied with all these arrangements. He, that chief is a man of his word. Even though I lost, he still prepared so much meat for me. How satisfying, he said with satisfaction as he tore the pig trotter in his hand. Peng Yu also wolfed down the food. After becoming a Langfeng soldier, the standard of food was naturally better than normal auxiliary soldiers and temporary auxiliary soldiers. However, after that fight, he had exhausted a lot of his stamina, and now was the time to replenish his nutrients. On the other hand, Wang Yong did not speak while eating. He seemed to be thinking about whether he would be able to meet the general here and whether he could avenge his family. After the meal, Qiu Vi appeared. He looked at the 3 of them and said, "Let's go. The chief wants to see you." In the largest tent in the Yang family army, Yang Qindong had just finished his dinner when Qiu Vi walked in with the 3 of them. As soon as they entered the tent, Peng Yu knelt on the ground. Greetings, sixth young master. I am Peng Yu. Yang Chendong smiled and nodded. Greetings. Sixth young master. Ba Daojiang hesitated for a moment before kneeling on the ground as well. With his personality, there were not many people who could make him kneel on both knees. However, just now, the other party had fulfilled his promise. He had eaten more than half a pig's head and 2 more pig trotters. Based on the other party's promise, it was not wrong for him to kneel on the ground once. After the 2 of them knelt, only Wang Yong was left. He raised his head and looked at Yang Chendong. Sixth young master, right? Since I won the competition, can I meet the general here? How dare you? Why aren't you kneeling when you see the sixth young master? Tiger's Mane and Beta Persei saw that Wang Yong did not kneel and even dared to question the young master. They were not going to be polite and immediately shouted at him. Qiu Vi and Dao Shao, the captain of the second guard squad, were even more direct. They came to Wang Yong's left and right side. It looked like they were going to force him to kneel. Humph. I knew you guys wouldn't keep your word. Seeing that more people were about to surround him, Wang Yong coldly snorted. Then, he spun his body and kicked Chou Wu and Dao Shao with his 2 legs in a spinning manner. Kid, come down. Facing this kick, the 2 guard captains were not anxious at all. They stretched out their arms at the same time and caught him firmly. Wang Yong was caught off guard and fell to the ground with a thud. This was the first time in all these years that his legs had been restrained by someone in a single move. Perhaps it was because he was careless, or perhaps it was because he had not fully recovered from the previous battle. However, it was more proof of Qiu Vi and Dao Zhao's strength. If it were anyone else, they would not have been able to do this even if they tried their best. With a plop, he fell to the ground. His new clothes were also dirty. Even his face was covered in dust. However, this did not make Wang Yong yield. He raised his head and asked Yang Chendong in a questioning tone. You didn't keep your word. How did the young master not keep his word? Yang Chendong had a calm smile on his face. He waved his hand casually and Qiu Vi and Dao Shao released their hands, allowing Wang Yong to regain his freedom. After regaining his freedom, Wang Yong stood up and said angrily, You said that if I won, you would bring me to see the general here. That's right, I already let you see him. Yang Chendong interrupted him with a smile. See him? Where? Wang Yong looked around suspiciously but did not find anyone who looked like a general. Chapter 389. They're everywhere. Yang Chendong chuckled and leaned back in his chair. Then, he pointed at Tiger's Mane, Beta Persei, Qiu Vi, and Dao Shao and said, They're all generals, and they're generals who can lead thousands of troops in the future. It's just that you don't know them. This. Are you kidding me? As if he had just reacted, Wang Yong's gaze swept across these people, and he spoke with an even angrier voice. No one is kidding you, and you're not worthy of our teasing. Alright, since you want to see the general, you must have something to say. Just say it now. You don't have to worry about whether or not he's a general. The most important thing is that we can help you with your matter, don't you think so? Yang Chendong asked gently, and his gaze towards Wang Yong carried a hint of a soul-stirring aura. As if his thoughts were seen through, or as if he knew that there was nothing else he could do, he simply said, All right, if that's the case, I'll say it. I want to see the general here because I'm Wang Yong of the Wang family, and I've lived in Zhaoqing Prefecture for a long time. However, because of the appearance of the Huang bandit army, especially Qing Yuan, who coveted my Wang family's wealth and beauty, he actually destroyed my Wang family. Now that I heard that he was captured by you, I want to see him and personally avenge my family's destruction. That's all. After finally stating his request, Wang Yong felt a lot more relaxed. When he looked at Yang Chendong, he actually felt a sense of relief. Alright, now you can take me to see the general here, or you can chase me out. Of course, you can also kill me. It's up to you. After hearing Wang Yong's request, Yang Chendong's gaze froze. Then he looked at Tiger's mane. Tiger's mane immediately understood what Yang Chendong meant. He nodded lightly, then turned around and walked out of the tent. Obviously, he wanted to investigate the truth of this matter. After Tiger's mane left, Yang Chendong looked at Wang Yong and said, "We won't kill you. As long as what you said is true, this young master will allow you to take revenge. Don't be impatient." After speaking to Wang Yong, Yang Chendong looked at Peng Yu and Ba Dao Jiang and said, "The two of you have good martial arts and kind hearts. You know how to help others. Am I right, young master?" "Ah." Peng Yu was stunned for a moment before he said guiltily, "Sixth young master. You saw through it?" "Huh, you saw through it." Ba Dao Jiang scratched his head embarrassedly. He had only joined for a short time, so he didn't know what the title, Sixth Young Master, meant. However, when he saw that Peng Yu, a member of Ling Feng, respected Yang Chendong so much, he didn't dare to look down on him. "Of course I saw through it. Otherwise, it would be hard to tell who would win. However, since you are helping him, I won't hold it against you. Stand up first," Yang Chendong said to the two of them with a smile. Peng Yu and Ba Dao Jiang stood up embarrassedly. Yang Chendong suddenly said, "By the way, this young master wants you to stay by my side and become my guards. Are you willing to join the first guard team?" "Ah." Peng Yu had just stood up, but when he heard this, he was shocked. When he saw the serious expression on Yang Chendong's face, he knew that it was true. He immediately knelt on the ground again. "Peng Yu is willing, Peng Yu is willing." After he finished speaking, Peng Yu didn't forget to pull Ba Dao Jiang, who had just stood up. "Quick, kneel down and thank him." "Why do I have to kneel down when I just got up? Is it so awesome to join the guard team?" Ba Dao Jiang was puzzled. "Of course it's awesome. It's so awesome." Peng Yu had already joined Ling Feng, so he naturally knew that being able to protect the sixth young master was an unparalleled honor and glory. However, when he saw that Ba Dao Jiang didn't seem to care about his good intentions, he couldn't help but say, "If you join the guard team, you'll have plenty of meat." "Oh. That's not bad." Ba Dao Jiang, who seemed to be a glutton, was finally moved. Perhaps it was due to the fear of being hungry all the time, but when he heard that there would be plenty of meat, he also knelt on the ground. Both of them knelt down and chose to join the guard team. No matter what their motives were, as long as they agreed, they probably wouldn't want to leave after they learned more about it. Yang Chendong smiled in satisfaction. "Very good. In a while, follow Captain Xiu V out to change your clothes. Someone will teach you the rules you need to follow." "Yes." Peng Yu and Ba Dao Jiang agreed. At this moment, Tiger's mane rushed back. After entering the tent, he went to Yang Chendong's side and whispered something. With the Security Bureau's current efficiency, since they had arrived at Zhaoqing Prefecture, they naturally had to investigate the surrounding situation thoroughly. The Wang family's matters were already recorded, so they would know the truth once they checked. The authenticity of Wang Yong's identity would naturally be revealed. "Bring him in." After listening to Tiger's mane's report, Yang Chendong knew that Wang Yong's name was indeed there, but he wasn't the person in front of him. The Security Bureau found someone from Zhaoqing Prefecture who knew Wang Yong, so he nodded and agreed to bring him in. Tiger's mane agreed and clapped his hands twice. Immediately, the tent door opened from the outside and an old man in coarse clothes walked in. Once he entered the tent, he knelt on the ground. "Your humble servant Lu Sen greets the masters." The old man obviously hadn't seen much of the world, so he trembled the moment he entered the tent. As soon as he entered the tent, Wang Yong's eyes widened. "Old Lu, why are you here?" "Ah." Hearing this familiar voice, Lu Sen raised his head and was startled when he saw Wang Yong. He then said, "Young Master Wang, why are you here? Wasn't the entire Wang family killed by the yellow bandits?" I wasn't at home at the time, so I avoided disaster," Wang Yong said with tears streaming down his face. Lu San was someone from the same street as them, so he was a neighbor who had watched him grow up. Of course, they knew each other. With Lu San as a witness, Wang Yong's identity couldn't be faked. Yang Qindong nodded at Tiger's mane and Lu San was brought out. The tent quickly became quiet again. Let's go and find Xing Yuan. Yang Qindong got up and left. Beta Persei and the others followed him out of the tent. When they walked to Wang Yong, who was still standing there, the captain of the first guard team, Qiu Vi, reached out and pulled him. Let's go and avenge you. Ah. Wang Yong was still in a confused state when he was pulled out of the tent. In Wang Yong's eyes, Yang Qindong was so young, even younger than himself. How could such a person be a general? Even if he relied on his family to get an official position, he probably wouldn't have any real position. In his impression, the officials of the Great Ming Dynasty were mostly old men, and the worst were middle-aged men. Could this young man do it? Wang Yong was still thinking about whether or not he could. In the military camp, Battalion Commander Chen Bo had already gathered a company of cold vanguard soldiers and followed Yang Qindong out of the military camp. Wang Yong vaguely heard someone say something. Commander Luo, the military camp should be loose on the outside and tight on the inside. If anything happens, act accordingly. Yang Qindong wanted to capture Xing Yuan and hand him over to Wang Yong to execute him on the spot. The idea was good, but the method was indeed against the rules. Since the person had already been handed over, the battle report to be sent to the capital should have already been written. If that was the case, then no matter what he did now, it would be considered a private action and a form of provocation. In the face of provocation, no matter what Guaning and Ma Wei did in response, it wouldn't be considered excessive. Yang Qindong was very clear on this point. It was because he was clear that he needed to make certain preparations. Although he didn't think that the other party would fall out with him because of this matter, it was better to be prepared. The mighty group of more than 100 people walked out of the military camp. Soon after, the mercenary camp closed. As for what would happen inside, outsiders probably wouldn't know. Riding tall horses, Yang Qindong and his group arrived at Zhaoqing City. Because the sky was already dark, the city gates were tightly shut. Only a few Southern Ming soldiers holding torches could be seen. When they saw a group of people approaching from a distance, the soldiers guarding the city became nervous. While they were still far away, they had already drawn their bows and were ready to shoot at any moment. It wasn't until the group got closer and the uniforms of the mercenaries appeared in front of them that the soldiers guarding the city finally relaxed. However, they still didn't open the city gates. Instead, they asked in a loud voice, "May I ask what the mercenary brothers are doing here? Please open the city gates. The Imperial Envoy has important matters to attend to." Battalion Commander Chen Bo, who was in charge of calling the city gates, said as he raised the king's command banner in his hand that represented the Imperial Envoy. This was the Imperial Envoy token that the Minister of War, Kuang Yi, had given to Yang Qindong on behalf of Yingzong. The Imperial Envoy represented the Emperor on an inspection tour. When they were outside, they naturally had a powerful side. This king's command banner was a symbol. When the king's command banner appeared, the Baihu guarding the city saw it and quickly bowed respectfully. They all said, "Long live the Emperor." However, although they spoke beautifully, they still had no intention of opening the city gates. "I am truly sorry. It is already late. If the Imperial Envoy has important matters, please enter the city early tomorrow morning." "What if I insist on entering the city? If you stop me, what if something happens? Can you take the blame?" Yang Qindong appeared on horseback under the light of a torch. When his dignified gaze swept over the city gate tower, the Southern Ming Baihu felt a chill from head to toe. He couldn't help but tremble all over. After experiencing 2 battles, the Imperial Envoy's name was like a killing god in the hearts of the Southern Ming soldiers who followed him. If it was just a name to scare people, perhaps they could use the reason that it was too dark to refuse. However, when the real person appeared, all excuses were clearly weak. "So it is the Imperial Envoy who has personally come. I will open the gates, open the gates. Come, open the gates." Chapter 390. Yang Chendong had only appeared and said a few words, but the city gates that should not have been opened completely opened. This scene was seen by Peng Yu and Ba Daojiang, who were accompanying them, and a sense of pride arose spontaneously. Wang Yong also saw this scene, and his heart was greatly shaken. He had a deeper understanding of Yang Chendong. This young man really did have some ability. The city gates opened wide, and Yang Chendong and his group entered the city. There were already people leading the way to the prison in the city, where Qing Yuan was being held. The prison was not too far from the city gates. In less than the time it took to drink a cup of tea, they arrived here. When they arrived here, there were two groups of torches rapidly approaching. Yang Chendong arrived first, and from a distance, he could already see the torches approaching. However, he did not give them a second glance. Instead, he nodded to Chen Bo in front of him, and then the two rows of soldiers charged into the prison. The Southern Ming soldiers in charge of security and guarding did not even understand what was going on before they were pressed to the ground. Some people wanted to resist, but they were quickly beaten to the ground after taking two more punches. What's going on? The two groups of torches finally approached, illuminating the place as if it was daytime. Guanning and Ma Wei appeared at Yang Chendong's side, fully clad in armor. They were originally anxious, but when they saw Yang Chendong's figure, they quickly came over to greet him. Greetings, Imperial Envoy. Yang Chendong first nodded his head lightly, then asked in a voice that seemed to be concerned, "It's already late at night, why are you here?" Someone reported to this general that Imperial Envoy entered the city in the middle of the night. "I don't know what happened, so I hurried over to take a look." "That's right, Imperial Envoy, why are you surrounding this place? Also, what crime did these Ming soldiers commit? Why are you beating them?" After Guanning greeted him, his gaze was fixed on Yang Chendong, as if he wanted an explanation. Although Ma Wei didn't say anything, his body was faintly moving closer to Guanning, indicating his attitude. Yang Chendong didn't answer Guan Ying's question directly. Instead, he asked rhetorically, "What? Are you questioning the actions of this Imperial Envoy?" "I wouldn't dare. It's just that since I'm in charge of Zhaoqing Manor's safety, I have to get to the bottom of this." Yang Chendong was obviously a little angry, but Guanning was not moved. Instead, he insisted. It had to be said that Guan Ying's temper wasn't considered to be popular in the imperial court. Fortunately, he held a position in the Ministry of War and was appreciated by Minister Kuang Yi. Otherwise, he would have suffered a lot for speaking to his superior in such a manner. A person like Guanning wouldn't be popular in the South Ming, but his actions were appreciated by Yang Chendong. Not for anything else, but because he dared to call out to him like this in front of his face. This was enough to prove that his courage was praiseworthy. It also proved that this person valued rules in his bones. This kind of person was what the Yang family system needed. Appreciation was one thing. Yang Chendong didn't have any intention of poaching Guanning. It was very difficult for someone like him, whose career was smooth sailing, to be used by him. If he wanted to use people, he had to choose those who had hit a wall or had lost confidence in the Ming dynasty. Guanning was clearly not among them. Since he couldn't be used by him, Yang Chendong wouldn't be so polite when he spoke. When he answered the other person's question, his voice was much colder. "I don't need to explain my actions to anyone other than the emperor. It's best if you stay to the side. Of course, if you want to challenge my bottom line, you can try." As soon as he finished speaking, the remaining platoon of soldiers quickly aimed their guns at Guanning, Ma Wei, and the others. Moving together with them were Qiu Vi and the others from the first guard squad. Among them, Ba Daojiang and Peng Yu were astonishingly among them. However, Ba Daojiang was holding 10,000 shining steel knives. Even though it was He Tian, their movements were still neat and uniform, giving people a soul-shaking feeling. When the pitch-black muzzles of their guns turned in unison, even Guanning couldn't help but take a step back. The power of these advanced guns had long been tested on the battlefield. To be honest, the power and accuracy of the great Ming dynasty's firearms were not something that could be compared to them. In the past, these things were used to deal with the Huang bandits. When they saw it, they only felt satisfied. However, the moment the muzzles were pointed at them, they felt extremely uneasy. There was even a feeling of suffocation that spread through their bodies. Guanning took a step back. How could the other Southern Ming soldiers not be scared into continuously retreating? They still hadn't figured out what was going on, but the imperial envoy had already turned hostile. What was he trying to do? Ma Wei was also shocked by the change in front of him. After taking a few steps back, he steadied his body. When he noticed that he had almost retreated into the midst of the soldiers behind him, he couldn't help but blush. He hurriedly took 2 steps forward and said to Yang Chendong with an apologetic smile, "Imperial envoy, what is the meaning of this? We are all on the same side. Treat me as one of your own. Treat me as the imperial envoy. You still dare to ask me what I am doing? Do you normally treat your superior with this kind of attitude?" Yang Chendong's tone was filled with anger. He then pointed at his feet and said, "Remember your current position. If anyone dares to take a step forward, execute them on the spot." His voice was cold and merciless. This wasn't because Yang Chendong wanted to take revenge for Wang Yong, so he used this ruthless method. He had thought of doing this before. As the imperial envoy, other than killing Zhaoqing's General Jiaping and taking care of the Guangdong Prison Department's Han Qing when he had just taken office, he had never shown his thunderous methods. It was to the point that many people had forgotten his cold image. Just like today, he had used 30,000 taels of silver to buy a pig. According to the Bureau of Security's secret report, the price was actually 30% higher than the market price. This was treating him like a sucker. This wasn't just a matter of money. It was a lack of basic respect. In view of this, he had to intimidate people. He could take advantage of this opportunity to take revenge on the other side. It could also be considered a wake-up call for them. The imperial envoy had threatened to kill anyone who crossed the line. Regardless of whether it was Guanning or Ma Wei, their expressions became ugly. No matter what, Zhaoqing was still Southern Ming territory. Although the city was taken down by them, they had given them enough benefits as discussed before. Since it was like this, what right did they have to order them around as the owner? Wasn't this going too far? At this moment, no matter if it was Guanning or Ma Wei, both had a sullen expression on their faces. The soldiers beside them also felt the anger of the general. One by one, they involuntarily placed their hands on their waists, where there was a saber. Suddenly, an austere atmosphere filled the air. It was also at this time that the originally friendly relationship between everyone began to change. Yang Chendong, who knew how many life and death situations, was naturally especially sensitive to this kind of murderous aura. It wasn't just him. Even Ling Feng and the members of the small guard squad all gripped the 95 style tightly in their hands. It was as if they were waiting for an order to start a massacre. If they really fought at such a close distance, it was basically impossible for Ling Feng to come out unscathed. However, the final victor would undoubtedly be Ling Feng. The advantage of modern weapons against cold weapons was still very obvious. Yang Chendong obviously understood this point. However, he was even more clear that now was not the time to truly turn hostile. Putting aside the fact that his 2 wives were still in the capital of Baiming and some of his businesses were still developing there, if they really fought, even if he could kill Ma Wei and Guanning, what was the use? These people had no enmity with him. There was no benefit in killing them, only harm. He wasn't willing to do such a loss-making business. He was very clear on this point. Seeing that swords were drawn and bows bent, Yang Chendong suddenly spoke. "What? Did you eat too much pork and want to move your body a little?" Once these words were spoken, General Ma Wei's originally angry face suddenly flushed red. However, his anger had disappeared. Others might not understand the meaning of these words, but he was very clear. This time, he was in charge of helping the mercenaries buy live pigs. Out of his habit of taking advantage of opportunities, he more or less deducted a little, about 7,000 to 8,000 taels. This was because of his habit, and also because he was envious of the mercenaries' gains. Why should they get all the benefits after entering the city and he get nothing? You guys get the meat, no matter what, we get the soup. Therefore, when he knew that the mercenaries needed a large number of live pigs, he had an idea. He acted first and reported later, so he deducted a certain amount of commission and benefits. He originally thought that the matter was done covertly. However, Yang Chendong had always been very careful. He was afraid that someone would do something to the food, so he had arranged for Yang San to have the security bureau secretly keep an eye on it. He didn't expect that the inside story would be uncovered. Now that Yang Chendong had exposed the matter in front of everyone, Ma Wei's face turned red, and he felt a little lacking in confidence. At this moment, his expression also changed very quickly. It must be a misunderstanding. Quickly stand properly and retreat. Really, we know that the Imperial envoy is doing something, we should cooperate. The sudden change stunned the other soldiers. However, since the general had spoken, they didn't dare to disobey. One by one, they put the swords that they were about to pull out back into the sheath. Then, they retreated a few steps, maintaining a safe distance. This change made Guaning very puzzled. He couldn't understand why Ma Wei suddenly changed his attitude. However, before he could ask anything, his body was already pulled back a few steps by Ma Wei. It was also at this time that there was movement from inside the prison. Dozens of soldiers carried an injured man out. Chapter 391. Even though the sky was dark, Guaning could still recognize this person with the help of a torch. It was the bandit leader of the Huang bandit army, Qing Yuan, who guarded Zhaoqing Manor. He immediately cried out, "This is Qing Yuan, one of the leaders of the Huang bandit army. The memorial regarding him has already been reported to the imperial court. He will be escorted into the capital tomorrow. Why did you bring him out? Did you see clearly? Is that Qing Yuan?" Yang Chendong ignored Guan Ying's cries and asked Wang Yong, who was staring at him with bloodshot eyes. "Yes, that's him. I would recognize him even if he turned into ashes," Wang Yong said with certainty. In reality, Qing Yuan was captured by Qin Bo and Ling Feng. Naturally, Wang Yong would know his true appearance. Yang Chendong's question was only to confirm further. Knowing that this person was Qing Yuan, he nodded and said, "All right, bring him back to the camp." With that, Yang Chendong turned his head and glared fiercely at Ma Wei and Guaning. Then, he led the troops away without a word. "Why did you bring Qing Yuan away? Stop them quickly." Seeing that his merit was about to be taken away, Guaning naturally had a look of indignation on his face as he shouted loudly once again. General Guan, bear with it. We are no match for them." Ma Wei, on the other hand, was calm and collected. He stretched out his hand and pulled Ma Wei hard, not letting him run around. Seeing the figures of Yang Chendong's troops slowly disappear into the night, Ma Wei finally let go of Guan Ying's hands. As soon as he let go, Guaning shouted at him angrily, "General Ma, what are you doing? Do you know that the criminal of the imperial court was taken away under our noses?" Of course, this general has seen it, but I have my own difficulties." Ma Wei replied with a helpless look. "Difficulties? What difficulties?" Guaning asked with a puzzled expression and a face full of anger. He knew that if he couldn't explain things clearly, he wouldn't be able to get through this ordeal. With a guilty look, Ma Wei whispered the story of how he embezzled the money that the mercenaries used to buy the pork. What? After hearing what had happened, Guaning was naturally furious. He shouted in a roaring tone, "General Ma, you are really bold. How can you do such a thing?" "Shoo!" Ma Wei stuck out his index finger to cover his mouth, and said in a pleading tone, "General Guan, there's no other way. If you want to lead soldiers, you have to give them some benefits. Otherwise, who would listen to you? Isn't that the only thing we can do?" "You." At this moment, Guan Ying's face was filled with anger. He pointed at Ma Wei, not knowing what to say. In the end, they were on the same side. In the eyes of the imperial envoy, Ma Wei's action was probably also his own idea. It was no wonder that the slap in the face came with a wave of his hand. Forget it, forget it. In the end, he was in the wrong first. He couldn't blame others. Although Guaning was angry, he had no choice but to swallow the bitter fruit at this moment. Ma Wei saw that his emotions had stabilized, and said in an insatiable tone, "General Guan, now that things have come to this, can we write a battle report and say that Qing Yuan bit his tongue and committed suicide in prison?" Absolutely not. Guaning hurriedly waved his hand, but he was afraid that Ma Wei would misunderstand, so he said in an explaining tone, "It's not that I don't want to do this, but the brocade guards are everywhere. Presumably, tonight's matter will be reported to the Emperor through secret channels. It's fine if we speak the truth, but if there is even a trace of falsehood, it would be deceiving the Emperor. Do you know the severity of this?" It was Ma Wei's turn to change his expression. He quickly cupped his fist and said, "Thank you for your reminder, General Guan. I was reckless. Forget it, it's not a big deal. From the beginning of the battle, the National Treasury has never given enough food to the Guangdong Guards. The Emperor knows about this. I'm sure the Emperor, with his wisdom, can understand our actions." Guaning thought for a bit and still spoke his opinion. He was afraid that Ma Wei would have too many thoughts. On the battlefield, it was not a good thing for a general to have psychological pressure. "I hope so," Ma Wei said with a face that was praying for Buddha's protection. In reality, he was somewhat afraid. Fortunately, the silver this time was not for his own use. It was because the military was lacking in food. With his heart set on serving the country, he calmed down a lot. On the other side, Yang Qindong led his troops into the city to capture people and calmly retreated. Only after they left the city gates did the Lengfeng troops put away the guns in their hands with waning interest. To these Lengfeng, their hearts were filled with pride, and their strength was tyrannical. Even the southern Ming army was nothing in their eyes. If the sixth young master gave the order, not only would they not be afraid, they would even be unusually excited to fight. This was the ability to use the hearts of an army. To become an invincible army, one must first have the mentality and courage to not fear the armies of the world. Now, it seemed that they had already done it. This courage infected every soldier. Even Peng Yu and Ba Daojiang, who had just joined the guard squad and had witnessed the entire process, were filled with excitement. This was especially so for Ba Daojiang. This could be said to be the first time he had seen someone who dared to make the southern Ming army suffer. This scene left a deep impression on him, and made him extremely curious about the Lengfeng troops. He was also proud that he was one of them. His first sense of belonging came from tonight's operation. Compared to the Huang bandit army that he had joined before, the Lengfeng troops were too strong, and the southern Ming army was too weak. After joining such an army, even if someone wanted to chase him away, it would be very difficult for him to leave. Wang Yong also stood in the group. At this moment, he was staring at the bound Qing Yuan. In his eyes, there was only this person. The scene of the Wang family's hundreds of people dying tragically appeared in his mind from time to time. At the entrance of the military camp, someone had already sent the news after Yang Qindong and the others had left the city. At this moment, the gates of the camp were wide open. Commander Luo Pe and Political Commissar Kong Jia had already led the soldiers to line up and wait. When they saw the sixth young master's figure approaching, the two of them stood at attention and saluted. "It's fine. Just arrange for people to be on guard. The other soldiers can go and rest. Oh right, hand Qing Yuan over to Wang Yong for revenge." Yang Qindong rode into the military camp. Then, everything in the military camp fell silent again. After arranging for someone to give Wang Yong a military tent and sending the bound Qing Yuan in, Yang Qindong did not bother about this matter anymore. Instead, he went directly to his own tent to rest. First Madame Hu Yan, third Madame Shui, and Miss Su Monair were all waiting here. When the two madams heard that Yang Qindong had left the military camp at night and that the entire military camp was under martial law, they were naturally worried. Su Maner saw that the two madams did not go to rest, so she did not go to sleep by herself. Besides, she was also very curious about what Yang Chendong was doing, so she also stayed. She had not been by Yang Chendong's side for a long time. Speaking of which, the two of them had not even had a chance to be alone. As a result, the sixth young master still gave her a mysterious feeling. Of course, Su Maner had tried different ways to ask Hu Yan and Madame Xue about this loyal and courageous duke. However, the two madams were very smart. They would say what they should and would not say anything more than what they should not. This made Yang Chendong even more mysterious. Tonight, the military camp was suddenly under martial law. Even outside the tent where Yang Chendong usually chatted and ate with the madams, there were more guards. How could this change escape Su Maner's eyes? She carefully observed, and her heart was filled with shock. What does this young master want to do? Will he be in danger? That shouldn't be the case. Based on the confidence he displayed on the battlefield, I really don't know who could threaten him. He should be fine. When thinking of this, Su Maner herself did not know that she was already faintly worried about Yang Chendong. As for why she thought so, she was afraid that she could not figure it out for the time being. Su Maner did not stop all this until Yang Chendong returned to the military camp tent safely. Even when Yang Chendong's gaze casually swept over her, she blushed for a while. As people said, everyone loved beautiful women. How could a hero not be loved by beautiful women? Sixth young master is back. My husband is back. Hu Yan and Madame Xue stood up one after another. Their concern was completely expressed on their faces and words. I went out to do some small things. I've made Yan, and Xue worry. It's really my fault. How about this? In order to make up for it, both of you can stay here tonight. Ha ha ha. Yang Chendong's face was not serious at all. Instead, it was full of tenderness and sweetness. As soon as he said this, Hu Yan and Madame Xue in the tent both blushed and became hot. They were shy and happy. They were happy to have a husband who loved them so much. However, it was inevitable that they would feel embarrassed to say such words of love in front of so many people at the same time. This was not the future. On the street, there were people who courted and kissed in public. The onlookers would even give them their blessings. If all this happened at this time, it would only attract people's sidelong glances. It was normal for people to feel ashamed. Yang Chendong's action made the two madams very shy. Even the two madams' personal maids, Xiao Qing and Xiao Wei, blushed and lowered their heads. They were very embarrassed. Su Maner's face was even more embarrassed. At this time, her face was red and swollen, as if she had a fever. After hearing this, she did not even dare to raise her head. She just bowed and almost ran out of the tent with the help of her maid, Xiao Yun. Behind her came Yang Chendong's laughter. Chapter 392. Sixth young master, Miss Su is not married yet. She is very thin-skinned. If you do this, she will inevitably feel embarrassed. Hu Yan walked forward and took the initiative to remove the military windbreaker that Yang Chendong was wearing. Then, she said with a coquettish expression. Who asked her to come over and join in the fun for no reason? I didn't invite her either. Yang Chendong said casually. Then, he stretched out his hand and hugged Hu Yan's slender waist. Hu Yan's face was filled with happiness. When she was hugged, she did not show any signs of rejection. Instead, she said to her personal maid, Xiao Qing, quickly bring the hot water over. Third sister and I will serve my husband to bathe. On the other side, Su Maner hurried back to her military tent. Even after she sat down again, her heart was still beating fast. The maid, Xiao Yun, said in an extremely dissatisfied voice, Miss, this sixth young master of the Yang family is really something. He knows that Miss is still here, yet he said such shameless words. He really doesn't respect others. Xiao Yun, be quiet. Su Maner's body shook when she heard this. Then, she said in a slightly stern voice, Xiao Yun, you can't say such things in the future. You have to understand that we came here of our own free will. No one forced us. Do you know? If he insists on chasing us away because of your words and actions, then how will we achieve the goal of this trip? Even if I die, I won't be able to face my family. After Su Maner's expression became serious, Xiao Yun had already shut her mouth. When she saw that her master's expression became more and more serious as she spoke, and her eyes were about to turn red, she hurriedly came forward. Miss, Xiao Yun was wrong. I won't dare to do it again in the future. Xiao Yun, it's not that I have to scold you. I also know that you are fighting for justice for me. But who asked me to be born like this? At this moment, I finally saw the hope of revenge. Even if I have to risk my life, I have to give it a try. So, we can't make a single mistake in the future. Do you understand? Miss, Xiao Yun understands. But do you really trust him that much? If we really do it, will he really fulfill his promise? Xiao Yun nodded in agreement. At the same time, there was a trace of suspicion in her expression. Towards Xiao Yun's question, Su Maner was also unable to give the most correct answer. But in order to avenge her family, what else could she do other than choose to believe? Therefore, she could only nod and shake her head as she said, I don't know either, but he shouldn't go back on his word. He wouldn't lie to me, right? Miss, let's hope so. Let's hope our sacrifice is worth it. All right, it's late. Miss, you should sleep first. Xiao Yun sighed in her heart. She didn't know if what Miss was doing was right or wrong, but there was one thing that was not wrong, and that was that she would definitely follow by Miss's side. Even in the face of death, she would not retreat half a step. That night, Su Maner couldn't sleep. After that, she even had a nightmare. That was, she had completed her mission, but the person who promised her didn't avenge the Su family. On the contrary, the sixth young master of the Yang family, who was harmed by her, even came to question her with a bloody face. She was scared half to death in her dream. That night, Yang Chendong naturally slept extremely well. Hugging left and right, it didn't take long for him to enter a sweet dream. He really slept all the way until dawn. That night, Wang Yong didn't sleep at all. First, he cut Qing Yuan over 100 times. If he hadn't used a cloth to gag the other party's mouth earlier, he was afraid that the miserable screams that night would have caused the entire military camp to be unable to sleep peacefully. After killing Qing Yuan, Wang Yong knelt in front of Yang Chendong's tent until dawn, until Yang Chendong came out for his morning exercise. When Yang Chendong came out of the tent in camouflage clothes, Tiger's Mane, who was guarding outside, jogged over. Young master, he's been kneeling here for most of the night. Qing Yuan was also killed by him. Got it. Send him to the auxiliary regiment like this. Let him learn to abide by the rules first and wash away the evil aura on him. Yang Chendong nodded lightly. Then, he brought Beta Persei, Qiu Vi, Peng Yu, Ba Dao Jiang, and the others from the first guard team and started jogging in the military camp. Yang Chendong didn't want to keep all the capable people by his side, especially people like Wang Yong who had a strong evil aura. If he didn't know the rules, Yang Chendong would rather not have him than keep a bomb by his side. But thinking about it, if Wang Yong really had the ability, he would climb up step by step and eventually become a true warrior. 1451 AD, the second year of Tianshan, the third year of Baiming, the 6th month of Jingtai. The Guangdong Yellow Bandit Army began their final frenzied counterattack. With Wuzhou Prefecture and Xuanzhou Prefecture as the center. In the north, at Mengzhu Ridge, Heavenly King Cui Yen led 20,000 troops and was ambushed by the 2nd Regiment, Kong Chuanxin's 3rd Battalion, 2 auxiliary battalions, and Pingle's General He Sheng. After the battle, Heavenly King Cui Yen died. Less than 10% of the 20,000 troops escaped. In the south, Heavenly King's son Jianglong had just left the city when he was met with the 2nd Regiment, Wu Xing's 1st Battalion, 2 auxiliary battalions, and Xiao's General Yu Guang's fierce attacks. After losing, he lost Gaozhou Prefecture and retreated to Laizhou Prefecture. Facing the 40 rocket launchers, he couldn't defend the city and retreated to the seaside to leave. However, not long after, there was no more news. What the others did not know was that the Yang family's navy was already waiting for them at sea. Under the personal leadership of the navy's first commander Yu Guang, in less than an hour, the ship that Sun Jianglong and his 15,000 men were on was destroyed at sea. Another 13,000 survivors were salvaged, while over 1,000 others lost their lives in the sea. In the west, with Xuanzhou Prefecture as the starting point, Heavenly King Ru Honghai led 30,000 troops to test the waters of Nanning Prefecture and Liuzhou Prefecture of Guangxi. However, because the enemy was well prepared and had the advantage in numbers, the attacks were neutralized. In the end, after losing 10,000 troops, they retreated to Xuanzhou Prefecture to rest. At this point, Huang Yuliang's so-called four-sided attack strategy had completely collapsed. Not only that, the east and north of Wuzhou Prefecture had already been stationed by the southern Ming army to suppress the bandits. At this moment, the people in the city were in a state of panic. Some of the leaders also had their own thoughts and plans. This was already the third day since Yang Qindong brought troops to Wuzhou Prefecture. Ever since he arrived 3 days ago, he didn't immediately attack the city. On the contrary, he ordered people to defend it tightly. From time to time, the drums of the army would sound, causing the Huang bandits in the city to be like birds startled by the twang of a bow. Kong Lingxin's 3 battalions to the north also had the same attitude. They also surrounded the enemy without attacking, and their war drums beat loudly. Yang Qindong's actions had once confused Guan Ying and Ma Wei. The two of them walked into the large military tent and came in front of the 6th young master. Imperial Envoy. Once the two generals entered the tent, they cupped their fists and bowed. The 2 generals have come. Serve tea. Yang Qindong wasn't wearing a military uniform. Instead, he wore a normal green robe. Just from this, it could be seen that he didn't have any desire to fight. At this moment, he was holding a brush and practicing calligraphy. No need. Guaning waved his hand and refused the good intentions. He raised his head to look at Yang Qindong and said in a serious tone, Imperial Envoy, I don't know why the Huang bandits are right in front of you, but you must surround them and not attack. Please teach me. Guan Ying's attitude was even cold. Yang Qindong saw all of this and let out a long breath in his heart. At the very beginning, Guaning had treated him with this attitude. Yang Qindong didn't pay attention to it. Instead, he used practical actions to wake the other up. He let him know what it meant to shock the world with a single brilliant feat. Guan Ying's attitude towards him had changed completely after the victory at the Battle of Canton Prefecture City. However, ever since he openly snatched the captive Qing Yuan in Zhaoqing Prefecture, the relationship between the two had clearly changed. They became much more unfamiliar. Now, he had directly come to question him. It could be seen that this person truly had a problem with him. At some point in time, Yang Qindong even had the thought of recruiting him for his own use. Guaning was indeed a talent. At least, he was much more pragmatic than some of the other Ming dynasty generals. However, a general of the Southern Ming dynasty was still a general of the Southern Ming dynasty. His heart was still more inclined towards the Great Ming. This kind of person could be called a loyal official, but could also be called a foolishly loyal general. They all had a similar characteristic. They wouldn't easily change their original intentions. In other words, it was very difficult to change the mentality of these people. Take Yu Qian for example. He was also foolishly loyal. However, Yang Qindong had spent a lot of effort on him. Under the influence of nearly a year in Crimson City, even a stone's heart could melt. Finally, the environment changed a person. Yu Qian had become an important official of the Yangxia dynasty. He was in charge of the affairs of Crimson City and the nearby cities. He had also displayed his ability to manage everything in an orderly manner. Yu Qian could be changed because in Yang Qindong's heart, he was a very capable person. He was worth the price to attack his heart. However, although Guanning was a good general, he wasn't unique. In the new Yangxia dynasty army, there were no lack of good generals. There were even a few who had shown their talents as commanders. Since that was the case, why would he spend so much effort on Guanning? Originally, Yang Chendong didn't have much hope. Naturally, when he saw Guan Ying's attitude, he wasn't angry. On the contrary, when faced with his question, he continued to practice his calligraphy as he spoke with an indifferent expression. Surround but don't fight? Naturally, it's because there are too many Huang bandits in the city. With our small number of soldiers, we can't take them all down. Since that's the case, it's better to slowly wear them down. You've also seen that starting today, there are already Huang bandits coming out of the city to join us. Although there aren't many of them, only a dozen or so, it's still a good start. I believe that if I slowly endure like this, in less than half a year, the Huang bandits in the city will collapse on their own. Chapter 393. What Yang Chendong said was an understatement, and the method was indeed appropriate. Based on what he said, the Huang bandit army would not all surrender in half a year. However, it would be much easier to attack the city at that time. However, how could Guanning wait for half a year? During the chaos in Yunnan, the southern Ming army was forced to retreat step by step. The initial problem had become an existence that threatened the foundation of the country. In comparison, the Huang bandit army was not worth mentioning. Especially as the heavenly kings were either destroyed or fled in defeat, they had long become an existence that was difficult to achieve. A real man standing in the world had to do something that shocked the world. Thus, although Guanning was still in Guangdong, his mind had long flown to the battlefield in Yunnan thousands of li away. He wanted to go there and show off his skills. However, if he wanted to go to Yunnan, the matter in Guangdong had to be resolved first. This was one of the main reasons why he had come to urge Yang Chendong. Wait? The imperial envoy can wait, but I cannot. Right now, the war in Yunnan is not going smoothly. The emperor and minister Kuang are endlessly worried. They only hope that after resolving the matter of the Huang bandit army, they can use the power of the country to quell the chaos in Yunnan. So, I asked the imperial envoy to send troops. Standing there, Guanning once again cupped his fist and spoke. At this moment, he was no longer like a subordinate. Instead, he was like a superior giving orders. Guan Ying's words fell into Yang Chendong's ears. He had no choice but to stop writing and stand. He then looked straight ahead and said to Guanning, I have said that the Huang bandit army is powerful. Now is not the best time to attack the city. I will not say this a second time. Guanning, you may leave. He did not call him General Guan and instead directly called him by his name. This already expressed Yang Chendong's anger. Ma Wei, who was accompanying Yang Chendong, saw that Yang Chendong was angry. He immediately winked at Guanning. It was clear that he didn't want him to continue talking. However, since Guanning had come with a determined heart, he would not back down because of one sentence. After hearing Yang Chendong's words, he shook his head. Fine. Since the imperial envoy does not think the time is right, I request to lead troops to attack the city. Please allow it. Approved. Yang Chendong agreed without hesitation. Since this person was determined to do so, he could not stop him. He would just fulfill his wish. He had not thought that Yang Chendong would agree so readily. Guanning was first surprised, then his eyes showed gratitude. Thank you, Imperial Envoy. Guanning left, followed by Ma Wei. As soon as they left the tent, Tiger's Mane, who was standing at the side, was puzzled. Young master, why did you agree to his request? He's a good general, and he's smart. This young master is just helping him. I hope he can be a good opponent in the future. After saying that, Yang Chendong lowered his head and continued to practice his calligraphy, leaving Tiger's Mane standing there at a loss. Tiger's Mane could feel that there was a hidden meaning in the young master's words, but he still needed to figure it out himself. But he really could not figure it out for a while, so his gaze fell on Beta Persei, who was standing on the other side. Feeling Tiger's mane's gaze, Beta Persei dodged again and again, turning a blind eye. It was not for any other reason, but because he also could not understand the hidden meaning in the young master's words. For him, there was no need to worry about these complicated things. He only needed to protect the young master's safety. As for Tiger's mane, if he wanted to think about it, then he could think about it. If he wanted to have a headache, then he could. Seeing that Beta Persei did not look at him, Tiger's mane secretly scolded him for being an idiot, but then he also laughed. He could not figure it out himself, so how could he not be an idiot? Not long after Guanning and Ma Wei had walked out of the tent, the latter asked in confusion, "General Guan, why are you so aggressive? The imperial envoy is not to be trifled with." "Of course, I know he is not to be trifled with. I am just expressing my position." Guanning stood still and then let out a long breath as if he was very relaxed. "Expressing your position?" Ma Wei's face was full of confusion. "Yes, expressing your position. General Ma is different from me. You are the commander of the Guangdong Guards, and Guangdong has just experienced war. I'm afraid you will need to stay here to guard for a while. After everything is settled, I will return to Jingdo. When the time comes, I will be rewarded. Under the glory, I will naturally be envied. It is inevitable that there will be villains who will slander the emperor. At this time, falling out with the imperial envoy is expressing my position. This way, I will not be suspected by others. This is one of the reasons. Although these few battles seem to be going smoothly, in reality, it is all due to the efforts of the imperial envoy and the mercenaries. We have always been dispensable existences. In order to prove ourselves, we need to fight a real battle. This is also where we have the opportunity to perform." Guanning spoke the thoughts in his heart completely because he knew Ma Wei would not be able to return to Jingdo to take up a post for a while. To people who could not threaten him, he could open up some of his heart. Of course, if he didn't make the matter clear, Ma Wei would probably not fully cooperate with him. This would also be very difficult for him to take down Wuzhou. This was also one of the important reasons. After being said like this, Ma Wei finally understood. After sighing in his heart about Guan Ying's careful thinking and long-term vision, he immediately expressed his position. "General Guan, since it is like this, I will fully cooperate in the attack on Wuzhou. We will fight however you want." "Good, I have already ordered people to make the scaling ladders and other items needed to attack the city. They should be ready in a day. At that time, we will attack the city with all our strength. The great merit will be right in front of us." Guanning wanted Ma Wei to say this, so he immediately spoke excitedly. "Good," Ma Wei said in a similarly excited tone. During the chaos in Guangdong this time, as the commander of the Guangdong Guard, he was not able to quell the bandits at the first moment. He was originally guilty. Now that he had the opportunity to take the blame, of course, he did not want to let it go. The two generals had the same goal. After returning to their tent, they began to prepare enthusiastically. A day later, when the wooden scaling ladders were completed, the attack on the city began. Within Wuzhou Prefecture City. In a large courtyard, a new signboard was hung high up. The two large words, "Zhu Manor," were written on it. This was the manor of Zhu Fangyong, one of the leaders of the Huang bandit army. As a chess piece that Yang Chendong had placed in the Huang bandit army, Zhu Fangyong's performance was exceptional. After saving Huang Yuliang's life and losing 3 of the 4 heavenly kings, he had become one of young Master Huang's trusted aides. Of course, Zhu Fangyong was clear that Huang Yuliang was both wary of him and using him. Wary because of the other's nature, using him was because there was no better general to choose from. Fortunately, Zhu Fangyong had never been of the same mind as Huang Yuliang. Thus, he was able to deal with this situation safely. As a trusted aide that Yang Chendong had placed here, he knew the direction of the situation better than anyone else in the city. He even had a rough guess of where the next step would be. Originally, everything was within his expectations. However, the Ming army suddenly attacked the city this morning. This was something that Zhu Fangyong could not understand. Based on the previous plan, they should first surround the city and wait for the morale of the city to fall into chaos before making their next move. However, why did they suddenly attack the city? Had there been a change in the plan? However, he should have been notified first. Just as Zhu Fangyong was feeling uneasy about the matter in front of him, the person in charge of communications, Ling Feng, finally appeared. The person who came was dressed as a farmer delivering vegetables. To outsiders, the reason he was called before Zhu Fangyong was because the general wanted to know the price of vegetables in the city. Zhu Fangyong was deeply trusted by Huang Yuliang, so it was normal for him to be worried. The person who came was dressed in rough clothes. Even his face was full of wrinkles and his skin was dark. Under this kind of appearance, it was difficult for anyone to suspect that he was not a vegetable farmer. In reality, the person who came was disguised. This was one of the necessary methods to become an elite spy of the Security Bureau. I am 007. You can call me 007. This is a token. When the vegetable farmer arrived in the bedroom, he no longer had the silly grin and hunched posture that he used to have in front of outsiders. Instead, he straightened his back, took out a golden token from his bosom, and presented it to Zhu Fangyong. The golden tablet was made by the military factory in Crimson City. Many modern elements were added to it. Even if others wanted to disguise it, it was impossible to do so. Zhu Fangyong had seen such a tablet before. That person was codenamed 013. Now that 007 had appeared, it was clearly of a higher level. He immediately cupped his fist and said, "Brother 007, you've worked hard. We are all working for the 6th young master. This is our duty. It can't be considered hard. However, I'm afraid that after this, Commander Zhu will really have to work hard." 007's expression carried a trace of seriousness. Following this, he explained the matter of the Ming army taking the initiative to attack, as well as the method the 6th young master had proposed to deal with it. The 6th young master's meaning is that the Ming army outside the city can be considered an elite division of the southern Ming Empire. If possible, it would be best to use the head of the Huang bandit army to exhaust them. Then, when the time is ripe, the next step of the plan can be carried out. 007 spoke as he took out a secret letter and handed it to Zhu Fangyong. "Commander Zhu, please open it on the spot and then burn it in front of me. This will allow this subordinate to return with an explanation." Well said, well said. Zhu Fangyong knew that since 007 had said this, then the secret letter had to be burned. This was actually for his own good, to prevent any evidence from being left behind. Opening the secret letter, Yang Chendong's handwriting jumped into his eyes. When Zhu Fangyong saw the 6th young master's overall plan, he couldn't help but nod his head. Good, good. The 6th young master's plan is good. This commander will carry it out seriously. After speaking, the dense letter was burned into ashes. Another quarter of an hour passed, and the farmer walked out of the study with a fawning look on his face. In his hand was a piece of 5 taels of silver. His smile was so brilliant that the wrinkles on his face seemed to be able to squeeze a bunch of flies to death. Chapter 394. The Ming army had started to attack the city. Guanning didn't just do it for the sake of showing off. Before the battle, he had indeed done a lot of things. One of the most important things was to learn the management methods of the mercenary army. He recruited a lot of strong captives into the army and then took care of them. He also said that whoever could make a great contribution in the next battle would be rewarded with money, meat, and even an official position. This was also Guan Ying's decision to make an exception. Normally, people who were guilty would not even be able to obtain the status of a good citizen. However, to be able to do well, he actually promised an official position and wealth. Just from this point, he had really put in a lot of effort. Not talking about the official position, just the fact that before entering the battlefield, he had given the attacking soldiers a full meal and provided them with enough meat was enough to make many people shed tears of gratitude. The ancients also paid attention to being a ghost with a full stomach before they died. Legend had it that when they went to the netherworld, they would not suffer too much. Now that they had eaten and drunk their fill, for some people, they had no regrets. Using them to attack the city was indeed shocking. Just the first wave of attack had allowed them to rush up to the top of the city tower of Wuxia City. If Zhu Fangyong had not brought people over in time, this wave of attack might have broken through the city. Reality proved that as long as one used the right method, the morale of the army could be used. He called the original Huang bandit captives to the training grounds of the camp. With good wine and meat, General Guaning, whose face was filled with excitement, was planning the attack plan for the next day. Outside the camp, some of the rich people who were originally in the Wuzhou house brought good wine and meat to help the army. To them, there were too many immovable assets in the city. The earlier they took down the city, the earlier they could take back what belonged to them and the earlier they could return to their normal lives. Within the mercenary camp, it was extremely quiet. Apart from the normal training of the soldiers, there was no other movement. Inside the large tent, it was not as peaceful as it seemed from the outside. Commander Luo Pa, Commander Lu Zhua and the others were listening to the battle reports from the front lines, waiting for the latest orders from the 6th young master. Everyone was in the tent, listening attentively to the reports from the scouts they had sent out about the scene of the siege today. When they talked about how the Ming army had actively attacked the city, how the first wave of attacks had charged up the city tower without any hesitation, and how they had almost taken down Wuzhou City, everyone's face was filled with shock. Since when did the Ming army possess such powerful combat strength? In their eyes, the Ming army was just a bunch of weaklings. They could bully the common people, but when they really faced the bandits, they would probably reveal their cowardly nature. They are not real Ming soldiers. They were chosen from the remaining captives we picked up. Guaning imitated us. After providing them with a few meals, he promised them that they would be promoted and become rich after the siege. Yang Qindong saw that everyone was discussing fervently below, with faces filled with disbelief. Thus, he explained the real reason. After saying all this, Yang Qindong's gaze swept across the crowd and continued, reality has proven that arrogance will definitely lead to mistakes. Luckily, this time the Ming army was dealing with the yellow bandits. What if they were targeting us? If we were arrogant, wouldn't we be at a disadvantage? Facing Yang Qindong's question, the officers first looked at each other. Then, the commander of the auxiliary troops, Lu Zhua, stood out and said, 6th young master, we have the most advanced firearms in the world. Even if they were to come, we would not be afraid of them. We will definitely wipe them all out. Yes, yes. The other officers also nodded their heads, clearly agreeing with this point of view. Yang Qindong, who was sitting at the head of the table, saw that the officers were still full of confidence and could not help but twitch the corner of his mouth. He said with a somewhat sarcastic tone, yes. We have the most advanced firearms in the world. This is our advantage, and perhaps our only advantage. Perhaps once we lose our weapons, we are no different from the Ming army. If we are heavily surrounded, how many bullets can you bring? There will be a day when you run out of bullets. At that time, won't we be surrounded like dumplings and be completely wiped out? Ah, this. At this moment, the officers were dumbfounded. They suddenly realized that they originally thought that they were invincible, but after analyzing it, it seemed that the truth was not so. Therefore, we are not strong enough. If we want to become the strongest army in the world, it is not enough to just have advanced weapons. We also need a strong heart and a strong will to fight. No matter what kind of enemy we meet, we will not be afraid and will not take a step back. From today onwards, the training will be doubled. Other than firearms, everyone will also have to seriously practice the use of cold weapons and the 3-3 system. In short, no matter what, even if our soldiers are unarmed, they must have the confidence and certainty to defeat any enemy. Yang Qindong suddenly stood up and said with an incomparably sharp voice. Yes. The officers below all stood up. The sixth young master had pointed out everyone's shortcomings, so they had to correct them. This was not as simple as following orders. At the crucial moment, a well-trained army would save their own lives. After having a unified order, the military camp began to get busy. Other than the necessary personnel on duty, the other members of the 1st Guard Squad went down to the various platoons to teach the soldiers close combat tactics. For example, Tiger's Mane, Qiu Vi, Ba Daojiang, Ping Yu, and the others. Even Wang Yong, who had just joined the auxiliary soldiers, began to get busy. They all became instructor-like figures and began to walk into the military camp. They faced the normal soldiers and taught them the way of fighting. The Ming army and mercenaries were all hurrying their preparations. In the hall of the Wuzhou government yamen, the bandit leader Huang Yuliang was currently raging. He, who had gathered all the generals, first killed the general in charge of defending the city in front of everyone. Then, he rewarded Zhu Fangyong, who had provided assistance. Afterwards, his anger seemed to have subsided greatly. Sitting on the seat of the former Wuzhou Zhizhou, he looked at everyone and said, "You have to know that once the city gate is broken, we will all die. Even if it is for your own safety, I ask that everyone do their best. I also ask that everyone follow General Zhu Fangyong's example." "Yes, young Master Huang." The high-ranking officers and leaders standing below all agreed. However, there were only a few people who truly listened to these words. Even Huang Yuliang did not have much confidence in his heart. "You can all leave. Manage your brothers well and be prepared to go up the city gate tower to fight at any time. General Zhu, stay." Waving his hand, Huang Yuliang had an expression of tiredness and irritation. "We will leave." After the other generals all cupped their fists and said this, they left in 2s and 3s. As they walked, they whispered something. It was clear that they were analyzing the situation in front of them. Some of them were probably even spreading words that were unfavorable to the bandit army. If this were in the past, no one would dare to do all of this. However, 2 of the 4 heavenly kings were dead, 1 was missing, and only 1 was left. In this situation, Huang Yuliang's control over the army was clearly not as good as before. At this moment, it seemed that he could only allow these people to casually say whatever they wanted. There was nothing he could do. Everyone left, leaving only Huang Yuliang, 2 guards, and Zhu Fangyong standing in the middle of the hall. "General Zhu, your performance today was very good. I am very satisfied." Huang Yuliang sighed as he looked at Zhu Fangyong, who was still able to organize a military force to fight against the Ming dynasty in this chaotic world and emerge victorious. This is all due to young master's good fortune. This general does not dare to claim credit. Zhu Fangyong did not forget to flatter Huang Yuliang. "Ha ha ha, good. General Zhu is still the most loyal. This young master can rest assured when doing things." Huang Yuliang, who was extremely comfortable with this flattery, laughed heartily. Soon after, his tone changed. "General Zhu, this young master intends to hand over the task of guarding the city to you. How confident are you?" Zhu Fangyong, who was asked this question, was stunned at first, as if he was not mentally prepared. Then, he half knelt and said, "Many thanks to young master for thinking so highly of me. Even if you hand over the defense of the city to me, I will do my best." In Huang Yuliang's eyes, Zhu Fangyong's words of loyalty naturally made him happy. However, what he valued more was how confident Zhu Fangyong was in defending the city. Thus, he asked again. "General Zhu, you still haven't said. If I hand over the defense of Wuzhou to you, will you be able to defend it?" Zhu Fangyong slowly raised his head and looked at Huang Yuliang. He said with a serious face, in reply to young master, "I will not be able to defend it." What? Originally, Huang Yuliang thought that even if he could not defend it, Zhu Fangyong would say some tactful words. For example, he would do his best, or he would hold on for a while, etc. He never expected such a direct answer, which caught Huang Yuliang off guard. "You will not be able to defend it?" I have 60,000 soldiers, so why can't I defend a small Wuzhou prefecture? Huang Yuliang asked unhappily. Young master, please forgive me for speaking so bluntly. You also said that we are in a small Wuzhou prefecture. If we defend it for a long time, we will run out of food and water. If that's the case, there will be chaos before anyone else attacks. If that's the case, how can we defend the city? Hearing Zhu Fangyong's serious answer, Huang Yuliang's emotions gradually stabilized. Okay, then what do you think? Young master, based on my thoughts, we must give up on the Wuzhou prefecture. Give up? Continue. Huang Yuliang frowned as he listened. Yes. After Zhu Fangyong agreed, he said, the art of war says that if we defend for a long time, we will definitely lose. Without reinforcements, defending the Wuzhou prefecture to the death is the worst plan. There might even be no hope. Why not give up on this place and find a new place to settle down? It's like arranging for Ru Honghai to find a new place to settle down and develop. Internally, we can guard the city strictly and delay the Ming army's attack speed. At the same time, we also have to deal with the internal problems. This humble general is not talented, but I have arranged for some people to do some investigations. I found that some generals have long wanted to join the Ming army. If such people stay by our side, not only will they not be of help, but they will also become our cancer and hinder our development. Chapter 395. Zhu Fangyong spoke with fervor and assurance, and Huang Yuliang listened very seriously. He only stopped talking after the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. Then, he stared ahead without blinking, waiting for his young master to make the final decision. From Zhu Fangyong's words, Huang Yuliang knew that Zhu Fangyong had put in a lot of effort. At least, he had carefully considered their escape route. More importantly, Zhu Fangyong's words were clear and logical, and he had a plan for how to proceed step by step. This made Huang Yuliang very confident. An army was most afraid of doing things without a goal. This kind of army was like a headless fly, and was destined to have problems. From this, it could be seen how important a correct direction was. Huang Yuliang had already secretly approved of Zhu Fangyong's plan, but he still needed to ask for more details. Yes, General Zhu, please stand up. You said that you could let Heavenly King Ru find a new location, but do you have a plan? In reply to young master, I do have a plan. If possible, we can let Heavenly King Ru lead the army to the vicinity of Gaozhou Prefecture. That place is vast and sparsely populated, and the territory is large. There aren't any important towns around it, so it's beneficial for us to move around there. Once the time is right, we can raise our flag again and gather a powerful army. Zhu Fangyong, who was already prepared, explained the plan in one breath. Gaozhou Prefecture? Hearing this location, Huang Yuliang hurriedly searched for it on the map. Then, he said with a suspicious expression, isn't there also a Ming army in Gaozhou Prefecture? Previously, Heavenly King Sun Jianglong's army was defeated there. That's right, it's there. However, just like young master said, if you didn't expect us to go there, then the Ming army would be even more surprised. Taking them by surprise is in accordance with the art of war. We will have a chance to appear there when they least expect it. It's precisely because it's not far from the sea that we can escape into the sea if things go wrong. This way, the southern Ming army, which has already restricted the sea, can't do anything to us. When that time comes, we'll be like fish in the sea. Zhu Fangyong nodded heavily with a confident expression. Take them by surprise, take them by surprise. Huang Yuliang muttered to himself. Then, as if he had made up his mind, he slammed his fist on the desk. All right, let's take them by surprise and kill our way out. How about this? General Zhu's suggestion just now will be approved by this young master. I'll leave the matter of city defense to you. You will also be in charge of those disloyal generals. At the same time, you will also arrange for Heavenly King Ru to secretly attack Gao Prefecture. I hope you won't disappoint me. Otherwise, you know the consequences. The reason he said that he would not be disappointed was because the failure of Zhu Fangyong's policy of attacking everywhere had not only caused the strength of the Yellow Bandit army to shrink greatly, it had also implicated Sun Jianglong and Cui Yen, the two heavenly kings, to die in battle or disappear. This time, he listened to Zhu Fangyong's plan. If something went wrong again, then he would have to doubt Zhu Fangyong's intention. How intelligent was Zhu Fangyong? He naturally understood the hidden meaning in Huang Yuliang's words. He immediately cupped his fist and said, "I'm willing to guarantee with my life that as long as Heavenly King Ru is careful, once you suddenly appear in front of Gao Prefecture's city, no one will be able to stop you." "All right, then this young master will take advantage of General Zhu's auspicious words." Huang Yuliang's laughter rang out in the hall. He seemed to be in a good mood at this moment. Huang Yuliang trusted Zhu Fangyong again. Even though he knew that there were risks in doing so, he didn't have any better methods to deal with the current situation. Thus, he might as well give it another try. Of course, he didn't completely trust Zhu Fangyong. He still arranged for a group of personal guards to follow Zhu Fangyong and watch his every move. If they discovered that Zhu Fangyong was doing anything improper, they would probably raise their blades and cut off his head. Zhu Fangyong didn't show any signs of resentment towards the fact that someone was watching him. On the contrary, he even entertained these people with good food and drinks. Furthermore, he would bring them along whenever he did something. He acted as if he was innocent and wasn't afraid of being investigated. After gaining Huang Yuliang's trust on the surface, Zhu Fangyong started to do things boldly. First, he captured some of the generals in the Huang bandit army who weren't ready to fight. Then, he stripped them of their military power and made them his subordinates. At the same time, he strengthened the defense of the city and made it look like he was going to fight to the death with the Ming army. Zhu Fangyong's deployment was well planned and orderly. This caused the Ming army to face a lot of trouble in the next few sieges. There were many casualties in the fierce battle above and below Shuangfang city. In the end, they managed to protect the Wuzhou prefecture and didn't let the Ming army enter the city. With the city protected, Huang Yuliang was naturally much more satisfied with Zhu Fangyong. At this moment, news came from Heavenly King Ru. They followed Zhu Fangyong's suggestion and suddenly appeared outside Gaozhou prefecture. As expected, they didn't spend much effort to retake the city. With this, they found a new path of retreat for the Huang bandit army. After hearing this news, Huang Yuliang was naturally elated and had a higher opinion of Zhu Fangyong. As Gaozhou was taken down, the Huang bandit army had a path of retreat. Huang Yuliang started to make arrangements to leave Wuzhou prefecture. For this, he once again called Zhu Fangyong over and asked him for a plan. After Zhu Fangyong, who was covered in blood and killing intent, entered the Great Hall, there was already a seat waiting for him. According to Huang Yuliang, after this battle, he would promote Zhu Fangyong to one of the 4 heavenly kings. "Thank you, young master," Zhu Fangyong said gratefully. Fangyong, there is no need to be angry. Now, can you tell me how we are going to retreat safely? Huang Yuliang said with a smile. "Yes, young master. This is what I think." Below Wuzhou city, Guaning and Ma Wei rode on their horses tiredly. Looking at the Wuzhou prefecture that they had not been able to take down and the corpses on the battlefield, their faces were filled with doubt and regret. They could not understand why the seemingly unstable Wuzhou city had almost taken the city in the first attack and still remained standing under the numerous fierce attacks they launched. On the contrary, they had lost soldiers and generals. Putting aside the fact that most of the Huang bandit captives had died in battle, even the original 4,000 Ming soldiers had lost close to 3,000 men. Why had they still not taken the city? After 7 or 8 sieges, including the captives, they had 8,000 men. But now, they did not even have 2,000 men left. Most of them were injured. This was a result that Guaning and Ma Wei could not accept. Especially the latter, who had already given the order to stop the siege. Ma Wei was the commander of the Guangdong Guards. No matter if he was a general or a commander, he had to have soldiers under his feet to be able to use his power. But now, he had almost used up everything, so it was no wonder that he would suddenly give the order to stop the siege. Guanning did not understand this matter and had even argued with Ma Wei because of it. In his words, he had lost a lot of men and was under a lot of pressure. The Huang bandit army was also not having a good time. Now, it was up to who could last longer. Perhaps after another fierce siege, they would be able to take down the city tower and take down the Wuzhou prefecture. Ma Wei shook his head and did not agree with Guan Ying's words. Disregarding everything else, even if they took down the Wuzhou prefecture, with the amount of military power he had, it would be difficult for them to do much. They probably did not even have enough people to watch over the captives, so how could they talk about defending the city? Ma Wei very happily rejected Guan Ying's idea of attacking the city again. He prepared to rest and build up strength. He would wait for the internal strife within Wuzhou city to happen as the imperial envoy had said so that he could benefit from it. However, just as this plan was prepared, an unexpected situation occurred. The city gates of Wuzhou prefecture suddenly opened. Thousands of people holding all kinds of weapons charged out and charged into the unprepared Ming army camp. Everything that happened so suddenly was completely out of their expectations. Caught unprepared, they were actually caught off guard by the Huang bandit army. Within the camp, many of the injured soldiers were killed. Even Guanning, because he could not retreat in time, was entangled with people and had an additional knife wound on his body. Fortunately, at the crucial moment, the mercenary army moved out. They held the 9.5 in their hands and shot at the Huang bandit army from a distance. Immediately after, thousands of auxiliary soldiers and temporary auxiliary soldiers suddenly charged out. Under the powerful aura, they quickly crumbled the morale of the Huang bandit army and defeated them in the Ming army camp. After the Huang bandit army soldiers who had left the city were killed or captured, the mercenary army directly charged toward Wuzhou city. Unexpectedly, it went very smoothly. Other than a few banners that the Huang bandit army had stuck into the city tower, all of the Huang bandit army had disappeared. Even most of the common people in the city had been taken away. The Wuzhou prefecture, which was almost empty, was taken down so easily. However, it was clear that Yang Chendong was not satisfied. He called over Guanning and Ma Wei to talk about continuing the pursuit. After the Huang bandit army has lost the Wuzhou prefecture, they have no place to stay. This is the best time to pursue and kill them. Otherwise, once they find a new place and continue to develop, it will not be long before they rise up again and become a problem for the court. Faced with Yang Chendong's righteous words, Guanning and Ma Wei lowered their heads. How could the two of them not understand this logic? It was just that right now, they only had 1,000 soldiers. Even if General Pingle brought a few hundred people, there were less than 2,000. They could still defend Wuzhou prefecture and calm down the situation here, but if they wanted to chase after someone, they really didn't have the strength to do so. The two of them did not speak. Yang Chendong pretended not to understand and asked, "What? Do the two generals have any objections?" No. However, after attacking Wuzhou city for the past few days, our vitality has been greatly damaged. Now, we lack soldiers and are trapped. It is time for us to reorganize. We really do not have the strength to chase after the Huang bandit army. This heavy responsibility will probably fall on the shoulders of the mercenary army and the imperial envoy. Ma Wei and Guanning spoke with pleading expressions. Chapter 396. So it's like this. Alright, since this imperial envoy has promised the emperor, then I will definitely completely destroy the Huang bandit army. Thus, we will leave first. If the two generals have finished organizing the military affairs, it won't be too late to catch up. Yang Chendong only pretended to be troubled. After a slight hesitation, he immediately agreed. Naturally, Ma Wei and Guanning were overjoyed that Yang Chendong agreed so readily. In order to express their sincerity, they even sent some of the food in their army to the mercenary camp. Then, they watched as the mercenary army left Wuzhou to chase after the Huang bandit army. Sigh, no matter what, the matter of the Huang bandit army has been taken care of. Soon, we will be able to report to the emperor. Ma Wei muttered to himself. When Guaning heard these words, his self-reproach lessened a lot. What the two of them did not know was that all of this was Yang Chendong's plan. Zhu Fangyong's action of leaving the city was one of his plans. The reason why he did this was because he had an even bigger goal, which was to completely destroy the Huang bandit army. The development of Qiqian City and Ryukyu Island needed people the most. Only with enough people could one do more things, expand one's army, and expand one's own power. It was because of this point that Yang Chendong's plan for the Huang bandit army was not to destroy them, but to make them prisoners. It was only about Ying and Ma Wei. They might be able to get some of the captives to become soldiers, but to get all of them to become their captives and be sent to Ryukyu Island was basically impossible. In order to achieve this goal, the first thing to do was to exhaust the Ming army's power so that they had no time to worry about other things. Thus, he sent a letter to Zhu Fangyong to use war to exhaust the Ming army's power. Using this, Zhu Fangyong could send some of the Huang bandit army's members who did not obey him or had bad attitudes to the battlefield and use the Ming army to eliminate them. Facts had proven that this plan was appropriate and successful. During these days of defending the city, Zhu Fangyong had received Huang Yuliang's trust and delegated power to him. Taking this opportunity, he had successfully eliminated the dissidents. In the end, he had sent those who didn't listen to him or those who were truly evil to the defense of the city tower. Most of the people in the Huang bandit army were people who were forced to join. They were not loyal to young Master Huang and did not have a sense of belonging to the Huang bandit army. As long as they had the right opportunity, they could become good citizens again. When they reached Ryukyu Island, they might even become useful talents there. After the plan was successfully implemented, Yang Chendong led the mercenaries out of the Wuzhou prefecture and headed towards Gaozhou. Even when they were leaving the city, they still brought the gratitude of Ma Wei and General Guaning. Of course, in Yang Chendong's eyes, the more benefits he got from others, the better it would be for him. Quickly inform Battalion Commander Wu Xing that we can close the encirclement and lock onto the target. After giving the secret order to Tiger's Mane, Yang Chendong turned around to look at the army in his hands. With Kong Chuanxin's Cold Front 3rd Battalion and an auxiliary battalion, the army he led had grown even stronger. Adding on the temporary auxiliary soldiers he had recruited along the way, the total number of soldiers had increased to nearly 7,000. Perhaps an army of 7,000 might not be much in the eyes of others, but if these people were mercenaries, they would be able to fight against an army of tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands. Moreover, they would have a high chance of winning. Huang Yuliang listened to Zhu Fangyong's suggestion and first sent his only heavenly king, General Ru Honghai, to attack Gaozhou prefecture. After occupying the city, he gave up on the entire Wuzhou prefecture and led most of the citizens to Gaozhou city in the southeast. Huang Yuliang didn't understand why he had to lead 40,000 citizens in Wuzhou prefecture. However, because Zhu Fangyong's method of dealing with the enemy was very timely, he didn't ask any further. Now that they were out of Wuzhou prefecture, the remaining 50,000 Huang bandits and 40,000 citizens were walking on the official road. Only then did he have the time to ask for the reason and order someone to call Zhu Fangyong in front of him. General Zhu, you have worked hard this time. You have done well and this young master is very satisfied. However, why did you bring the citizens of Wuzhou prefecture? General, what can you tell me? Huang Yuliang first expressed his admiration and then asked the question in his heart. Young master, you are very knowledgeable. You must have heard that water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize a boat. If you want to change the world, you must first obtain the support of the citizens because they are the foundation of a country. This is why I brought them this time. There are also two benefits. Zhu Fangyong, who had been prepared, didn't use much effort to answer this question. Two benefits. What are they? Huang Yuliang became spirited and asked curiously. First, young master didn't forget to take the citizens with you when you left the city. This is enough to prove that you have the citizens in your eyes and treat them as your own people. If this matter spreads out, won't young master's good name spread far and wide? This is a way to buy people's hearts without spending money. Second, when an army marches, there are always things that require manpower. For example, transporting grain, cooking, and washing for the soldiers. We men can't do these things well. With these people, it means we have a lot of free labor. Why not? With their hands free, our soldiers can focus on traveling and recover their energy. Once we fight with the Ming army, they will be able to use their strength better. Isn't this the best of both worlds? General, we have robbed so many cities. Right now, we don't lack grain and even have money left over. Isn't it a good thing that we can use the extra grain to get so many people to work for us? As for when we don't have enough grain in the future, we can think of a way to get them to leave. At that time, no matter where they go, they will think of young master's kindness and want to eat and wear warm clothes with you. If that's the case, once they hear about your news, who wouldn't want to come and seek refuge with you? Why would we worry about not having enough soldiers? Wouldn't the army grow stronger? Zhu Fangyong said a lot in a row. Every time he mentioned something, Huang Yuliang felt his eyes light up. Good, good. General Zhu is indeed farsighted. With General Zhu, there is no need to worry about the world being unstable. Like this, from today onwards, General Zhu will be one of the 4 heavenly kings under this young master. Hearing this reward, Zhu Fangyong's heart was filled with joy. However, he still pretended to be grateful. Many thanks for young master's nurturing. Fangyong will definitely do his best to repay young master's kindness. Huh, well said, well said. Huang Yuliang laughed heartily. He was happy that he had obtained such a loyal and capable subordinate. However, he didn't know that from now on, his little life was in the hands of others. Zhu Fangyong had officially become one of the 4 heavenly kings. This made his authority grow unprecedentedly. Many military leaders used the opportunity to congratulate him to express their loyalty. As a result, his influence in the Huang bandit army grew larger and larger. In fact, he could even make decisions on many matters without needing to report to Huang Yuliang. All of this gave Zhu Fangyong more support for his plan to complete the 6th young master. Gaozhou Prefecture. After Heavenly King Ru Honghai used a surprise attack to occupy this place, he gradually became arrogant. As one of the old 4 heavenly kings, Ru Honghai wasn't as brave as Gung Jun, nor as tall as Cui Yen. He wasn't as familiar with naval battles as Sun Jianglong. He was able to become one of the heavenly kings mostly because of his obedient personality. Among the 4 heavenly kings, the one that Huang Yuliang trusted the most was probably the ugly and average-looking Ru Honghai. There was no one else. His luck wasn't bad and he actually managed to survive until now. He even took over Gaozhou Prefecture and found a path of retreat for his young master. This merit could be said to be great. There was also news in the army that when young master Huang arrived at Gaozhou Prefecture, Ru Honghai would become the leader of the 4 heavenly kings. This kind of rumor naturally reached Ru Honghai's ears. It gave him a feeling of complacency, as if he didn't put the heroes of the world in his eyes. Due to his arrogance, the defense of Gaozhou Prefecture became lax. Or it could be said that Ru Honghai never thought that someone would target him. After all, from the news from the scouts, there weren't any Ming army forces near Gaozhou Prefecture. But in reality, there was a cold vanguard unit in Gaozhou City that could take his life. The leader of this unit was the Cold Vanguard 2nd Regiment 1st Battalion's commander Wu Sheng. In such a large city, as long as there were sufficient preparations, the existence of 400 people could be concealed without revealing themselves. Not to mention, these 400 people were all well-trained elites who had learned the art of camouflage. Previously, the Gaozhou Prefecture was breached by Wu Sheng and his men, which gave him ample time to hide. When Ru Honghai brought the Huang bandits into the city, the auxiliary camp retreated according to plan. Only Shao Prefecture's General Yu Guang and less than 1,000 people were left here to resist for a while before they couldn't leave. The effective resistance still existed. This strengthened Ru Honghai's belief that the Ming army was inferior to him. It also created enough opportunity for Wu Sheng and his men to stay. As Ru Honghai's troops occupied Gaozhou Prefecture for longer and longer, the time for Wu Sheng's cold vanguard unit to act was also getting closer and closer. Inform everyone, it's tonight. Finally, when the scouts of the Security Bureau infiltrated Gaozhou Prefecture and successfully contacted Wu Sheng, the orders from above were also delivered. The cold vanguard unit was about to act. Chapter 397. A total of 4 companies of Leng Feng, in addition to Wu Sheng and the other 400 people, they dug out the 9-5 spear and camouflage uniforms that they had hidden in the courtyards and began their night raid. The Leng Feng's movements were orderly and meticulous. Every Leng Feng had their own position. For example, who was in charge of dealing with the sentries, who was in charge of stopping the attack, who was in charge of seizing the city gate, who was in charge of capturing Ru Honghai, etc. All of the plans were assigned to every soldier. As a result, when it was midnight, more than 400 people walked out of the alleys and ran towards their respective targets. The Huang bandit army was caught off guard and did not expect the danger to come from within. In front of the meticulous, agile, and well-armed Leng Feng, most people did not even have the ability to fight back. Among the bodyguards protecting Ru Honghai, there were a few who had decent martial arts skills. Because of their high alertness, they were the first to notice that the atmosphere was not right and send out a warning signal. Unfortunately, there were too few such experts. Even if they sent out a warning signal, the news could not spread out of the courtyard before the Leng Feng surrounded them began to move. Battalion Commander Wu Sheng took the lead and kicked open the door with the 95 style. Soon after, a series of gunshots rang out and the 3 strong men who had a foundation in martial arts obediently lay on the ground. When the Leng Feng rushed into the bedroom in the courtyard, they pulled out the trembling Ru Honghai from under the bed. Following Ru Honghai's capture, without a leader, the Huang bandit army in the city fell into chaos. At this moment, the Leng Feng hiding in the dark suddenly made their move. Along with the loud shouts from the city gate, the seemingly majestic auxiliary barracks approached. Finally, the barracks exploded. No matter what kind of army it was, once the barracks exploded, it signaled the beginning of a disaster and defeat. The soldiers fled in all directions. The soldiers did not know their generals, and the generals did not know their soldiers. Once chaos erupted, it was hard for anyone to stop it. Even if the generals were to shout now, there was nothing they could do. There was no way to reverse the situation. Even the elite cold vanguard soldiers were helpless against the explosion of the camp. The only thing they could do was to observe the surroundings. Once they discovered any Huang bandits trying to rush out of the camp, they would fire a warning shot. If they couldn't stop them, they would start shooting. In short, they wouldn't allow such chaos to rush out of the camp. The explosion of the camp also indicated that the defeat of the Huang bandit army defending Gaozhou city was set in stone. At this point, Huang Yuliang's path of retreat was completely sealed. At this time, Huang Yuliang was leading 50,000 bandits and 40,000 commoners 80 miles away from Gaozhou city. In the past, with their current marching speed, they would be able to reach Gaozhou Prefecture in 2 to 3 days if they were fast. Once they met up with Ru Honghai's army, they would be able to gather a large force once again. However, all of this was destroyed tonight. Huang Yuliang, who was sleeping, was also woken up by the bodyguards. What's going on? Huang Yuliang suddenly opened his eyes with a face full of fear. Young master, General Zhu reported that the scouts discovered a large number of Ming army soldiers 30 miles behind us. Furthermore, they are the most powerful Ming army soldiers wearing camouflage uniforms. The bodyguard said with a slightly hurried voice. There's such a thing? Didn't we use up a lot of their resources when they attacked the Wuzhou prefecture? Why do they still have the strength to chase after us? Huang Yuliang instinctively said this before quickly shutting his mouth. The bodyguard had already said very clearly that the Ming army soldiers that came were wearing camouflage uniforms. It was said that they were the helpers that the southern Ming emperor, Zhu Qizhen, had invited. Since they weren't normal Ming army soldiers, this kind of army shouldn't have been exhausted. Only then would they have the strength to chase after him. After understanding this point, Huang Yuliang hurriedly put on his jacket. Before he could walk out of the tent, Zhu Fangyong, who was wearing armor, had already walked in. "Young master, there are pursuers behind us. It seems that we have been targeted. Right now, we need to hurry to Gaozhou City. Is there no way to stop them?" Gao Yuliang asked, thinking that he would deal with whatever came his way. "It's very difficult. This army has extremely advanced firearms. They can injure our brothers from far away. I'm afraid that it will be very difficult to stop them." When he said this, Zhu Fangyong revealed a defeated expression. Even if Huang Yuliang saw this, he wouldn't doubt that he had tried his best. However, there was still no solution. "If that's the case, then let's go quickly. Once we reach Gaozhou Prefecture, we should be safe with the sturdy city as our cover." For the sake of his own safety, Huang Yuliang made the decision to travel through the night. Yes, this general will go and instruct the army to hurry. When Zhu Fangyong agreed, a trace of joy flashed across his eyes. Everything was just as the sixth young master had imagined. This Huang Yuliang was truly extremely afraid of death. Since this was the case, the following process would be much easier to complete. In the dark night, the army that stretched for dozens of miles set off. From time to time, all sorts of curses could be heard from the crowd. It could be seen that both the bandits and the commoners were somewhat resistant to traveling in the middle of the night. Gaozhou City. When the sun rose, the commotion in the camp was basically over. After a night of torment, the Huang bandits were also tired. In addition, they could clearly see the surroundings after the sun rose. The chaotic environment became less and less chaotic until finally, it was completely peaceful. After everything calmed down, Heavenly King Ru Honghai was escorted out of the camp by Wu Sheng and Leng Feng. When they saw that their general was captured and they were completely surrounded, the Huang bandits had no choice but to surrender. The captives threw down their weapons and walked out of the camp in batches. Wu Sheng's face was filled with joy. In just this battle alone, they had captured about 15,000 Huang bandits. Most of the people here were strong and healthy. One could imagine how many things they could do when they reached Ryukyu Island. However, just as a smile appeared on his face, a soldier came to report that the Shaozhou General Yu Guang, who had disappeared for a while, had returned. He was currently waiting at the government office. "Oh. The speed of picking peaches is quite fast. Fine, since they want it, I'll give it to them. However, if they want to take these benefits from me, Wu Sheng, then they won't be able to do so. Let's see what kind of price they can pay." There was a glimmer of light in Wu Sheng's eyes. He had expected that the Southern Ming army would appear early in the morning. Even if the other party did not appear, according to the sixth young master's plan, Gaozhou Prefecture would have to be handed over. However, taking the initiative to hand it over was one matter. If the other party wanted to take it back, it was another matter. If Wu Sheng didn't use this opportunity to slaughter his opponent, how could he have the ability to be the commander of the main force? In front of Gaozhou City's government office, Wu Sheng brought a group of Leng Feng and saw Yu Guang in armor. Yu Guang was originally riding on a tall horse, but the moment he saw Wu Sheng appear, he consciously jumped off the horse and greeted him with a smile. "Commander Wu, it's been hard on you." Both sides had worked together before. They had forced Sun Jianglong, one of the four heavenly kings, into the sea near Gaozhou City and Laizhou City. They could be considered old acquaintances. However, this time, Yu Guang was here to snatch the credit. His expression was naturally a bit unnatural. "Oh. Isn't this General Yu Guang? A while ago, I couldn't find you and thought that you had sacrificed your life for the country. Because of this, I felt really bad for a while. Now that I see that you're fine, I'm very happy." After these words were spoken, Yu Guang's face alternated between red and white. Last time, when Ru Honghai brought his army to Gaozhou City, Wu Sheng directly said that he was no match for him and led his army to leave. Yu Guang didn't listen and defended the city for a day. In the end, because he didn't have enough troops, he escaped from Gaozhou city. It was after that there was a gap between the two of them. Now that Wu Xing said this to him, he was just venting his anger. Yu Guang, who knew that he was in the wrong, didn't listen to Wu Xing when they defended the city last time. Now that he wanted to take advantage of the situation, his expression was naturally very unnatural. However, when he thought about how he could take the credit for taking down Gaozhou city, it would greatly make up for the crime of losing Gaozhou city last time. He had no choice but to bite the bullet and say, Yu Guang will remember Commander Wu's concern for me. This time, I still have to thank you for helping Nanming take down Gaozhou city. Oh, this isn't a big deal. If you're willing, I can give you the credit for taking down Gaozhou city and even capturing Ru Honghai alive. However, General, you should also know that many of our brothers have died in this battle. The compensation for their families cannot be neglected. Wu Xing said in an overbearing manner. When he heard that Wu Xing was willing to give him all the credit, Yu Guang had long become excited. Good, good. How about we go into the government office to talk? Good, General Yu, please. Commander Wu, please. The two of them entered the Gaozhou city government office one after the other. What followed was naturally a round of bargaining. After 4 hours of negotiation, Wu Xing took away 15,000 captives and 200,000 taels of silver from Yu Guang. The amount of silver wasn't much. Furthermore, Yu Guang used his identity as a general of Nanming to borrow it from the rich gentry in Gaozhou city. Even though Ru Honghai had already entered Gaozhou city, this place had also been visited by another heavenly king, Sun Jianglong. However, as the local tyrants, which one of them wasn't a crafty rabbit with 3 burrows? Many of them had already buried the silver before the situation turned bad. It wasn't something that the Huang bandits could find in a short period of time. However, Yu Guang used his identity as a general of Nanming to negotiate with the rich gentry and quickly obtained 200,000 silver. Chapter 398. Wu Xing left after getting the person and the money. At this moment, he still had more important things to do. This was also the most important and final part of the plan. It was very crucial. If not for this, how could a mere 200,000 taels of silver be enough to send him off? Gaozhou city had already changed hands. Huang Yuliang was completely unaware of this matter. It was only when the sky turned dark on the second day that the scouts at the front reported back that Heavenly King Ru Honghai had been captured by the Southern Ming Empire's army. After running for an entire day and night, whether it was the generals, soldiers, or commoners, they were all extremely tired. According to Huang Yuliang's thoughts, he had to get a good night's sleep no matter what. However, when this news came, he completely panicked. He, who had no way out, suddenly lost all hope. At this time, Zhu Fangyong also came in front of Huang Yuliang. Young master, this matter is sudden, but we still have a way out. Oh. What other way is there? Hearing that there was still a way, Huang Yuliang, who had lost all hope for the future, regained a trace of vitality. Young master, Gaozhou city has been occupied, but we still have Laizhou city. If not, we can still take a ship to the sea. Right now, the most important thing is to immediately arrange for people to scout the way. Also, arrange for people to buy ships with gold and silver. As long as we are on the sea, the Southern Ming army will not be able to do anything to us. Zhu Fangyong said. That's right. As long as we are on the sea, the Southern Ming army will not be able to do anything to us. Good, let's do that. Huang Yuliang had completely lost his ability to judge. He really did whatever Zhu Fangyong told him to do. He immediately ordered people to take a lot of gold and silver and prepare to transport it out. Then, he arranged for 2,000 trusted soldiers to scout the way to Laizhou city and the sea. These 2,000 people were extremely trusted by Huang Yuliang. Most of them had followed his father, Huang Xiaoyang, into the army and were the most trustworthy existences. Even when he was in trouble, he didn't send these people out. But now, in order to find a suitable escape route, he finally sent these people out. Following the departure of these 2,000 soldiers, the only ones that Huang Yuliang could truly trust or be willing to risk their lives for him were the dozens of bodyguards around him. Because of the sudden incident, the original plan of having a good night's rest was disrupted. The army had no choice but to continue on their journey. For a moment, the curses in the army grew even louder, but this was no longer a problem that Huang Yuliang was concerned about. 30 li behind the Huang bandit army, the cold vanguard army had already stopped. They began to set up camp and cook. With the speed of the Langfeng soldiers, it was not difficult for them to catch up with the Huang bandits. However, it would be extremely difficult for him to obtain nearly 100,000 gold coins. In order to drive them into the pocket, Yang Chendong did not ask the warriors to travel through the night. Instead, he followed them at a leisurely pace. When it was time to eat, one would eat. When it was time to sleep, one would naturally need to sleep. Not only that, in the military camp, other than the necessary troops who were responsible for keeping watch at night, the other soldiers also had a party after dinner. Third Madame Xue and Miss Su Monaire also offered up songs and dances. It was truly a joyous scene. In the process of chasing an opponent, it was probably rare to see an army like Yang Chendong who could be at a leisurely pace and even have a party in the military camp. From this, it could be seen that the result of this battle had probably been predicted by the youngest loyal and daring general of the Ming dynasty. Furthermore, everything was developing smoothly according to his plan. It was late at night. The soldiers who were having a party had all returned to their tents to rest. However, some of the tents were still lit. For example, in the tent that Su Monaire was in, the lights were not extinguished. Not only that, but the master and servant were sitting there and chatting without any signs of sleepiness. Miss, this imperial envoy is truly carefree. This is war, yet he is not in a hurry to travel. He even has this party that he speaks of. What is he thinking? Servant Xiaoyun thought about how during the party, Yang Chendong was beside the bonfire and dancing with the soldiers under him. She felt that it was unbelievable. In her impression, all of the important officials were dignified and serious. They had a straight face every day as if they had the words, "Do not get close to strangers," written all over their faces. How could there be anyone like Yang Chendong, who would be so close to normal soldiers? However, thinking about it from another perspective, this imperial envoy was truly too young. It was not strange for him to have such actions. However, when she thought about how this kind of person was the target of the master and servant, someone they had to kill, she couldn't help but feel a wave of self-blame and depression in her heart. In the end, Xiaoyun was still young. Although she knew what her mission was, she was still young and could easily be influenced and changed by the surrounding environment. In the beginning, she had heard that this imperial envoy was very lustful and would not shrink from any crime. Originally, there was no burden in killing this kind of person. Not to mention, once the goal was achieved, the young miss would be freed. With all these benefits, Xiaoyun agreed without much thought. However, after these days of contact, she realized that the truth was different from what she had heard. Let's just say that Yang Chendong was lustful. It had been nearly 2 months since the young miss had taken the initiative to send herself to his door, but Yang Chendong had not done anything frivolous. He even turned a blind eye to it. This was completely different from the lustful person that was said to be. Not to mention a lustful person, with Su Monaire's beauty, even an ordinary man would not be able to remain indifferent. This could be seen from the cold eyes that looked at the young miss. However, Yang Chendong was able to control himself. Not only did he never show anything, but he also had very little contact. On the contrary, he took great care of them in their daily lives. In the past 2 months, Xiaoyun had come into contact with many new things, such as toothpaste, toothbrush, soap, perfume, mirror, and all kinds of beautiful clothes. Yang Chendong had sent many people to deliver these things, but he did not show himself. Xiaoyun couldn't understand all of this. She couldn't understand. In fact, not only the maid, Xiao Yun, but even the master, Su Maner, could not figure it out. As the head of the courtesans by the Qinhuai River, she usually came into contact with all kinds of men. Among them, there were princes and nobles with good family backgrounds, some young masters who boasted of their talents, and some Casanova young master with rich families. But no matter what, there was something in the way these people looked at her. It was a kind of possessiveness, a kind of desire for her body. However, this kind of gaze had never appeared in Yang Qindong's eyes, so much so that Su Maner suspected whether he was a normal man. However, this kind of suspicion was completely dispelled after she came into contact with the two madams, Hu Yan and Madame Shui. Sometimes, when she went to greet them in the morning, she could clearly see the satisfaction in the eyes of the two madams. Although Su Maner was still a virgin, she had been taught about the matters between men and women by her mothers. Naturally, she could see some of these things. The spring that flashed on his face was definitely not something that could be faked. Then the question was, why did such a normal man turn a blind eye to her? Could it be that he already knew her mission to get close to him? That was even more impossible. Even if he knew everything, he should have killed her earlier. Why did he still treat her like this? Why did he give her so many good things but not touch her? What did he want? The unknown always made people uneasy. It was because she could not understand Yang Qindong's thoughts that Su Maner became even more anxious. What was worse was that she realized that she did not hate Yang Qindong. It was just like when she saw Yang Qindong singing and dancing with his soldiers during the evening party. She actually felt happy in her heart. This was not a good sign. She could only have the intention to kill her target. It was impossible for her to have the slightest bit of liking for him. Otherwise, how could she complete her mission? The servant girl, Xiao Yun, was still talking endlessly, but Su Maner could not listen to a single word. From time to time, Yang Qindong's figure would flash across her mind. There was a faint smile on the corner of her mouth, as if it had grown in her head. Even if she waved her hand, it would not go far away. In the tent not far away, Yang Qindong was still using his power to have women on his left and right. After sleeping together for a while, they entered a short intermission. Hiding under Yang Qindong's strong arms, Hu Yan asked with an obedient look, "Lu Lang, is the war about to end?" "Yes, the Huang bandit army is about to be destroyed. The war in Guangdong is about to end." Yang Qindong nodded and admitted. However, he only said that the war in Guangdong was about to end. He did not say that the war was about to end. This originally expressed his attitude. As Hu Yan had other thoughts, she did not think too deeply about it. Naturally, she did not understand the deeper meaning in his words. When she heard Yang Qindong say that it was really about to end, she raised her head slightly. "Lu Lang, what do you plan to do about Miss Su's matter? She has been following us for more than a month without knowing why. What are you thinking?" "Yan, what do you want me to think?" When Yang Qindong heard Hu Yan talk about Su Maner, he could not help but become interested and asked. "This. I don't know." Hu Yan shook her head. She also did not know what kind of mentality she was in now. As a woman, she did not wish to share the man she liked with other women. However, Yang Qindong was so young and so capable. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was in a high position and had great power. Such a person was destined not to belong to any woman. Even ordinary people, who had some ability, would marry a few concubines, let alone people like Yang Qindong. You're tuning in to the Carefree Valley YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.